Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fourth episode of the W podcast. I'm Wolvy, I have SaucyJay next to me, and today we have a special episode because we have our first guest, drum roll, LBNinja. Hello, man, how are you?
I'm good. How are y'all doing?
We're doing fine, especially even
Excellent.
more so since we have you. Now, today's topic is going to be healing, and the best person to invite in the podcast for this topic is LBJ, LB Ninja, sorry, not LBJ,
Okay.
because he
Merging it.
is, yeah, he is playing all the healers. He has different challenges on his Twitch, like get all the healers to 3k last season, now get all the healers to KSH, etc. But let me throw it to you first. If you are to introduce yourself, how would you do that?
Oh man, how would I introduce myself? Just scuffed. I mean, I just log in, try my best, and look stupid in front of my camera every day. So, but yeah, LBNinja7, like you said, I'm doing a challenge currently, trying to play every healer to 2.5k right now, but it's been 3k in the past. That was probably too painful. We'll probably go back to that eventually, but yeah, that's who I am.
Yeah, later in the season, eventually. Yeah,
Yeah.
so we're gonna have links for his social media and Twitch in the description eventually, so you can guys check him out and follow him from there. But now let's dive into today's topic. As we said, that's gonna be healing, and I guess the first question that I can ask, we can go around the table, is how does healing feel in season one of the War Within, and maybe we can compare it to Dragonflight in general. And since we have a guest, I guess you can start again.
Oh no. Um, like I said, I've played every healer, throughout Dragonflight and then also right now. And I don't know if it's because the healers themselves feel worse, but I think there's like a general consensus right now that healing feels worse. And I mean, it's probably due to the dungeons or affixes. I mean, I'll probably mention a certain affix all day today. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean, there's just a lot. I mean, this dungeon pool's not really as engaging as a healer. And when it is, it's like it's just not fun or as fun, I would say. But I'm still trying to make the most fun of it, and I hope y'all are too. But I'm still having fun. It is just different, I'd say.
Yeah. How about you, SaucyJ?
I'm definitely having fun. I will say there's much more of a challenge, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that all three of us, for whatever weird reason, because our personalities are so cool, but we pug, right? All three of us pug very often. It's so much, that whatever we pug. So the difference in a pug versus a coordinated group is, you can coordinate, and we've gone over this in past episodes. But this season, not only do you have kind of the tank reliance on healer that you have to add, but you also have the contention of kicks and stops and how that changed from Dragonflight to the War Within. And I think that that's a really big consideration and why it feels so rough when coming into the War Within, because it's not like it used to be. That's a huge part for me, I think.
Yeah. Kind of the same. I wanted to be positive about this, right? And one positive thing that I came up with in my list, which is actually probably one of the few positive things, unfortunately, but uh, there was a lot of one-shot kind of mechanics in Dragonflight, and that seems to be a little bit easier in the War Within. Like, you can still
Yeah.
get like I don't want to say one-shotted, but now it's like a dot, right? So you have a little bit of a time to react. It's a little bit more spaced out, etc. And I think this is what people were asking for, right? But the damage is still very spiky, right? That hasn't changed. And I think because there's many reasons why it doesn't feel that good. I think the biggest reason is that everything now is not bug friendly. Like the dungeons are even worse in that regard. And I don't know, like we need to find some stats, but I think there's more people that play in bugs compared to people that play in organized groups. Like, okay,
I mean, there's gotta be, right?
yeah, like when you open, and I think the notion is different because when you open Twitch and you're watching like the world first keys, etc., of course they're going to be organized group, right? But the regular person that plays on daily basis, etc., you pug your keys, man. So the majority of people is pugging their keys, and a lot of the changes and a lot of the dungeon design is now making it very pug unfriendly, which I think contributes to everything feeling even harder to heal, although it changed a little bit in the way that the damage profiles work, etc. Right? And when I say pug unfriendly, I guess we can delve into that topic first. But there are a lot of dungeon design and boss mechanics that are now dependent. And again, this is something we were asking for. But let's take Skarmorak, for example, in Stonevault, right? It's a DPS check there or it's not even a check. It's like a sanity check if they can kill the orbs and space them out, right? And I
Right.
was asking for that in the past. I was like, okay, let's make a DPS mechanic, and if they fail it, we know that they fail it, right? And this is kind of like that. If they kill all three orbs at the same time, you basically wipe, right? and you know it's the DPS, but as a healer, there is nothing you can do. You know, you just run back. And there are
Right.
many more examples like that, but I think this is one of the major points, and unfortunately, I don't know how you can make it more bug friendly, so to speak. Because if you make everything way too easy and the mechanics are boring, that's not going to be perceived well as well. But do you have a take on this, LB?
Yeah, so like you said about that same boss, Skarmorak, I do like how they're making those mechanics where it's very clear it's the DPS because I mean not even pugs can argue. But I also raid, and there are some mechanics that if you fail them, you die. Like that's just how it goes.
Mhm.
And I was thinking about it the other day, and mechanics like that, where if they pop the shards too quickly, sometimes a good enough healer can probably recover that and like catch up to it. Or if two pop like really quickly, you can heal through it, or just like catch up between. But if they take those mechanics, which I think are good, like I said, because like you need the DPS to kind of like know that they're to blame. But if you take that and instead of making it like just do more damage, if all three pop within like a second, like shouldn't it just kill you?
Yeah.
Like shouldn't you just fall over instead of like having a chance? And I know that sounds kind of stupid to say, but I think that could be like another step where they do like actual kill mechanics.
Yeah.
So that way, like I'm a pug healer. I'm sure you guys have gone through this, but we get flamed if we can't like heal through that, and it's not even our fault.
I
Yep.
think on a
And
high enough key, it actually kills you.
Oh
Like,
yeah. Oh,
yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
But yeah, you're actually correct because on lower keys, it doesn't kill you, and you're supposed to heal through it, and then
Yeah.
you're getting blamed. Yeah. Um, but yeah. So do you have a take on this, SaucyJay?
yeah, I think I mean I like that in that particular fight. I agree. I think it's nice to have something at the DPS, but again, if you're if you're in a pug and you're lower level, it's like they don't get it anyway. It's just the healer failed, and so they don't care. Occasionally I've had multiple shamans, Ellie shamans, or was it maybe it's enhanced, say, oops, I had a proc and
Oh
it was
yeah,
out of my
been there,
control.
done that.
Uh, yeah. So, and that's cool when they can admit it. Um, you know, I personally enjoy the difficulty, but I that's just the way it is. I think the where for me the challenge is the fact that there's such a huge discrepancy between pugs and coordinated groups and the steps between the different levels where it's just unforgiving and there's nothing to account. I'll give you an example. Um, we all heal and we all raid. So if dispels go out and I spend a dispel, but LB clips me before, my dispel doesn't go on cooldown, right? Why can't
Mhm.
they do that for kicks? Why?
I know. I was
Yeah,
hoping we would talk about kicks.
Oh, we
yeah,
will.
Yeah, that is the most
it's insane.
frustrating.
Yeah, and they did it for dispels. I mean, that wasn't the case in the past, and they made a change for that. Why can't they do that for kicks? It makes no sense to me. So, because in pugs, how do you coordinate kick rotation? They're not.
Yeah.
Everybody's not going to download weak auras and have the same exact weak aura, and it becomes way too convoluted. And then you add stops on top of the kicks. Resto Shaman, Ellie Shaman, doing the knock up, the knockdown, whatever. Now you wasted kicks again, and it's like, okay, we got nothing in the next 10 seconds. All five people kicked, and we got nothing. So
Well, let
you
me
know
ask you this. So when I log on and I play like some ranked other game, like I don't know, we have voice comms. So like Call of Duty, you can obviously talk, and yes, there's downsides to talking in Call of Duty lobbies, but like part of the upside is you can make call outs. Should we start getting in Discord calls if we're in pug groups with our group? So I can say, hey, I'm stunning this. Hey, I'll kick this one. Or like should we be doing that? You know, is that kind of what they're trying to get us to do with all these changes lately?
That's a good question.
My initial reaction is they're not thinking about it because they just squished it from 30 keys to 10,
Yeah.
basically, right? Not 10, but maybe 20. Um, I think Blizzard is just trying to, respond to some of the things that we talked about. You talk about the Kiss Curse affixes, and I'm sure we'll get into some of that stuff. But you see what they're. I don't know if you guys are watching what they're doing with the classic things, but the proximity comms are pretty hilarious. I think that that's pretty cool, and that would work in a key. I think the issue you might run into there is, the game doesn't necessarily have the most pleasant player base. A lot of us are, late 20s to late 40s, been playing for 20 years, very jaded, and so you always have to contend with that, and I could see tanks and healers not wanting to be part of that because, like you indicated earlier, LB, if we don't do it, even if it's not our fault, we're gonna get flamed in chat. So you just take that to the ambiguous internet next level, and and it could only get worse. I would imagine maybe people would be more pleasant. I don't know, maybe I'm just being cynical, but that's my initial kind of my take. What do you think, Wolvie?
Oh, isn't there like a thing in game where you can join voice comms? Like there's like
Yeah.
a little icon that pops every
Have y'all
time.
ever done it though?
I've never clicked it. Yeah.
I've
Uh,
never clicked it.
yeah, but I guess this is in game. Somehow people prefer to use Discord. It's better for voice communication anyway. But I don't know. Like I think it's required, obviously, in organized groups and high keys.
Mhm.
And there were actually some high keys in Dragonflight that I've run, and people be like, "Yeah, let's jump on comps, right?"
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
maybe if you were, and it was different numbers back then, but like if you're doing 20, I didn't do that high keys, but like if you're doing 26, 27s, then maybe, you know, that's required. But if you're doing your weekly key, like it's kind of like too much to ask for of people. And let's keep in mind that many people that are playing online games, and WoW in specific, they're not like social butterflies, man. Like I'm not a social butterfly, so they could feel uncomfortable going talking
Mm-hmm.
to people and stuff like that.
Yep.
I'll even give the story. So because I don't know if LB knows that, but I actually live in Europe and I play on US servers, right? And I do
Mhm.
have a little bit of an accent. And in Dragonflight, they invited me to this skin. They were like, let's go into Discord. And we go into Discord. And I say, hi, how are you guys? And they kind of called that I have an accent. And they were like, where are you from? And I was like, yeah, I'm from a country in Europe. Bam, they disconnected me from Discord and kicked me
Mhm.
from the group right away, as I said it.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, we have a guild healer coming up.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, so, you
Yikes.
know, if you do this, you kind of get to the next level of toxicity that exists in the game, and we know that
Right.
there are a lot of toxic people in there. We actually made a video about this, but they started banning people because they were toxic in living groups, right? So this is like a good take to have, but I think this is going to open the floodgate, and it's going to
Oh
cause
yeah.
a whole bunch of different problems. And that's something like the add-ons and the weak auras in raid as well, right? It's fine for like the good people and the race to world first people to have it, the highest key to have it, but I don't think you should force everyone to do it. And the problems that we're talking about, they could be just better resolved as better design or something like that. But it's a very good question, but I don't think you should be forcing everyone to go into Discord or whatever it is. Um,
Right.
yeah, and then I guess we can jump into the affixes as well. So the affixes is something that we've been asking to get changed, and we've talked about this before. But one of the worst affixes, in my opinion, was afflicted in Dragonflight, where you had to dispel the shades or whatever, right? And Blizzard admitted that this is a problem, because what happens if there's like another dispel that you have to do on a person, right? You have to choose between not dispelling your tank and then dying, or dispel the affix and not wiping, right? They admitted that this is a problem, and now we have the same affix, right? Okay, it's not a shade, but you still have to dispel the person, and there are a
Right.
lot of problems when, let's say, the last boss in Siege of Borealis, where the dispels there are mandatory. It's 2 of them. So now the affix pops up and you have to hold your dispel. Like, what's going on there? So I know there's other affixes, but let's tackle this one first. I think this was a very bad decision, and looking at your expressions, I guess you guys are in the same opinion. But let's give it a shot.
I'm gonna have controversial, so I'll jump in. I don't mind it. I mean, on
Don't.
my on my
Ow,
disc
you're
crease,
banned.
man, controversial.
We'll
This
continue
crease,
just
it
the 2 of
feels so
us.
easy. You master spell one, and then the second one you just blast off, and it's like I can ramp in a couple seconds as disc
Yeah.
crease, and it's off. And the master spell's nice. My shaman, I run my totem, and I guess the second one it could be a little bit more rough. But I don't mind it. I haven't played a lot of my Druid this season to know how it feels on Druid, and Druid is already APM heavy for me. That's why I don't play it anymore, because my old man hands just are dead after 2 keys. I can't do it anymore. But I don't mind it too much. I actually kind of enjoy that thrill of, oh my god, there's so much damage going out, and we got this stupid thing, and I don't have MD. Oh well, I'll just Radiance and blast my pet and go, and it's off in like 2 void blasts and the thing is over. So it's like, it's not as bad. But and then Shaman, same thing. So I don't mind. I can't think of one besides the 15 seconds. I don't mind any of the Kiss Curse ones. I'm okay with them. I think it's a nice change to just having the running the same dungeon over and over. As long as they can fix the kind of really ugly overlaps we saw in the very beginning of the season, where like the orbs were going through the water and on Siege of Borealis and things like that, or under the like the weird
Yeah.
vertical instances where the orbs just didn't know what they were doing. They've worked through some of that, and so that's even doesn't bother me. It's just it can be ugly, but it's just an annoyance that we got to get around, and it doesn't really bother me. But that's my take. I'll let you guys go.
Let's have a more realistic take. LB, you go.
Okay, look. This affix is horrible. I did not like Afflicted, okay? Afflicted sucked.
Yep.
Because we pug, right? 8 out of 10 keys, I was having to dispel them both, which, that's not a problem, because how much did you have? You had like 10 seconds to get both off?
Yeah, you could get both.
And and your dispel timer is 8 seconds, so you had time to do it. But what if there's a dispel mechanic? Then all of a sudden you're screwed. And like whenever I play my main, which is Mistweaver Monk, like none of these affixes are really a problem, especially this current one. Like you have so many ways to get rid of it, like revival, like mass dispel if you need it in a pinch, or like Shayloons, I can just clear it. But since I'm playing my alts, it kind of just highlights. I think it's just like a small example that highlights the biggest issue as a healer right now, and that's like the disparity between the classes, like how much of a gap there is between them, not just in how much throughput, but like utility. Because like you said, Druid, I remember the first week that Affix came out, I had just started the push on my Druid, and I don't think I slept that week. It was so bad. You have like no ways to get rid of it. No one was clearing their own. And mind you, I was doing like +2s, +4s, so like easy keys, but you bet those affixes were going to heal the enemies. So it's just like, God, it was the slowest push week. But I mean, it's not even that it's like hard. Like I don't think anyone's complaining that it's like hard, or it makes the dungeon harder. It just makes your time as a healer more stressful and frustrating, because like you said, if a dispel mechanic goes off, like Mist of Tyr and a Scythe, such an easy dungeon. I love doing Mist of Tyr and a Scythe, unless it's that week, because one, you can either get it right as you have to run around and solve the puzzle, which is a healer affix, by the way, or if that like fox jumps to your ally and like puts a dispel debuff on them,
Yeah.
and you have to dispel that, and then here's Zalatath, wiggling her feet in front of our cameras, and now all we have to do is just press our buttons. It is so miserable because like you'll have everyone who had. I'm just like, I'm sorry, I'm having war flashbacks. Everyone has the talents that can dispel their own, but they don't use them.
Yeah.
Use it. It's one global. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think this is the main problem because this affix is considered to be a healer affix, right? Because technically you can heal through it. And I
Yeah.
think SaucyJay has it a little bit easier there playing this because, okay, you have the
Oh,
mass
yeah.
dispel, and then if you pop your mind bender, you can actually probably heal through it.
In like 2 globals,
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
5 are gone. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
but in like if you play a different class, specifically Druid and stuff, like if you try to heal through this stuff, it doesn't work, man. You have to like pop cooldowns.
Yeah.
Because like the first
And-
time
and-
I saw, yeah, go ahead.
If you not only do you pop cooldowns, you cross your fingers that your convoke chooses that
Yeah,
target. Because imagine you
exactly,
pop
right.
convoke, no regrowths go that way. Like, what are we
Yeah.
doing?
Even
I'm
on
sorry.
my Shaman, the first time I saw it, I was like, I because it popped like I didn't know what affixes this week. I go into my key and I didn't have the poison cleansing totem, right? So I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna heal through this. So I tried to heal through the first one, didn't work, right? So
Right.
I go to the next one and I'm like, okay, let me pop a cooler this time, see if I can heal through it. All right, I pop a cooldown, I heal through it, and then I did this 2 more times. Then the boss comes, I have no cooldowns because I used them to heal the affix, right? So I think that the notion that this is a healer affix is wrong. I guess they added the healing option just like as a backup if something goes wrong and there's a second one that you can dispel, stuff like that. But the fact that you can heal through it, people now consider this to be more of a healer affix. And as LB said, they're not using their own dispels. Not to mention that some classes don't have dispels, because
Right.
like this week when I was going into keys, if I see like a warrior and a DK as a DPS, I'm like, I'm not going into this group, man. you know.
Well, warrior can cleanse their own.
Well,
They
I'm not
couldn't do
sure.
afflicted. They
The
had
afflicted
something.
was, yeah, could be like, for example, the rogue can do it as well, but it has like a cooldown, so they cannot do
A 3
every,
minute or
yeah,
something.
they cannot do
Yeah.
every affix and stuff like that, right? So this kind of adds to the fact that this is very PUG unfriendly because first you're dependent on your group, right? You need to have the right people that are able to dispel, because I can tell you, I've run some keys where if people they all have the spells, and if they use them, it's like the affix is not there, right? You don't care. I don't mind it in those situations as well. But if it's a PUG and people are not pressing their buttons, and then they could end up blaming you because you're the healer, then that feels really bad, right? And I'll add one more thing since we're talking about affixes. Specifically in weeks like that where this affix is active, I avoid some of the healers, and I avoid playing that much in some of the keys in general, right? That's why I don't like it, because if the design makes you not want to play the game, then there's something wrong there, right?
Yeah.
But then once you go into 12s and higher, there's no affixes there. And in weeks like this, it feels so good, man. Like it's a hard content, like 12s and above, it's hard for pugging specifically. But knowing that I'm going there and I don't have to pick my poison cleansing, or I don't have to worry about the spells, and I can just play the dungeon, that feels so good, specifically in those weeks. And unfortunately, like I like that they're trying to change it. I like that they're coming up with different ideas. Maybe that was a huge miss, the specific affix, although some of the other affixes have problems. Some specific bosses, like the orbs that you cannot soak in certain situations.
Right.
But this one, and again, I go back to what I said earlier, it kind of pisses me off that they said, okay, we understand with Afflicted that this is bad, and now they did the same thing. So no lessons learned there, so to speak. But hopefully they iterate and it make it better in the next season. And let me just ask you very quickly, but we have the Xal'atath affixes this season. Do you think they're gonna stay the same next one, or they're gonna change it?
I feel like they usually do change from season to season, right? Because we had like Prideful, so I think we'll get something different. Hopefully they bring back Prideful. Didn't that give us mana back?
Prideful was
Where's the-
good.
Yeah,
It
Prideful was
did.
sick.
It was fine, but the problem with Prideful was like if you miss it, because you would get it just before a boss or something, right? And then that would allow you to kill the boss. And if for whatever reason you didn't get it there, or you wiped on the boss, then you're done. Like
Yeah.
that was the bad part. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Okay, so one more major topic when it comes to healing, and it's kind of related to healing, is the nerfs that we got to the tanks before the start of the expansion, right? And they basically become less tankier, so to speak. So now we have to tender them a little bit, supposedly heal them a little bit. How has these been for you? Is it better, worse, same? Just considering healing the tanks at first place.
You go first, Jay. I want to hear what you have to say.
Sure. Yeah, I'll tell you, when you have a good tank, you don't really heal them. You
It's the
don't.
same.
They're fine. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Same
exactly
as
the same.
before.
And then you get that 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 tanks that don't know what they either don't know how to manage their blood shield, or their, I don't know, whatever the tanks are doing, not using ignore pain or something, right? Like, well, there's only 3 buttons for warrior. Like, it's, I mean, that's an exaggeration, but it's like, but you still get them, and it's so it's when you have a good tank, you don't need to heal them. They're fine.
Yeah, I would agree to an extent. I'm on the boat where these changes, I really do like them. And it's not that you don't heal them. I wouldn't say that, but it's not as bad as we thought it would be. Like, I remember I was testing keys on the beta, and when they first implemented it, like, tanks would fall over. You would tell like your both of your warriors to run in, your prot falls over, your other's fine. It was weird. But now that it's made it into live, like they've survived, they're fine. But I do like it as a healer because on like your resto druid, I remember I was playing that way back in like early Shadowlands. I loved the Verdant Infusion legendary that you would play, because back then, like, say you're in Halls of Atonement, your tank runs in, he pulls all the bears, which are terrifying for tanks, and you just keep like 5 hots on your tank, and you just keep refreshing them, and it's just
Mhm.
it just felt really engaging. But we kind of lost that throughout Dragonflight. It felt like every key had a Blood Death Knight, and you just didn't really deal with it. But now it's like your tank is a Blood Death Knight until they're not. You kind of don't look at their health bar until you know that you have to. Like, if there's this one tank buster, you kind of have to look at it, which to me
Mhm.
feels more like you're focusing on the mechanic of, this is a tank buster, focus the tank kind of thing. But I like where they're at right now.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, Wolvie.
I'm actually on the same boat because
Okay.
tanks were very powerful in Dragonflight. Like I kept
Yeah.
saying, if there was no timer in Mythic Plus, they could just do all tank keys and they would be fine. It would take them like an hour probably to clean it because why would they need a healer and DPS? A bunch of monkeys that they have to deal with in the key, but they needed us because they couldn't meet the timer check, right? So I think that was way too powerful, and I'm welcoming changes like that because now I play tank a little bit. It's not a lot, but now you have to pay attention to what you're doing, right? Before you would be like running, I have aggro on everything. Okay, I can snore off until the pool is over. Like I don't care.
Yeah.
Now you actually have to like pay a little bit of attention, press your buttons, use your defensives, right? This is actually quite good and welcoming. And as a healer, as SaucyJay said, like if it's a good tank, you still don't have to heal them, right? Maybe you can throw a halt or something, and maybe okay, there's a tank buster, I need to throw a heal now. It's not like I have to spam them 24/7. If it's
Right.
a bad tank, then it's kind of the same. At least for me, it doesn't matter how much you heal them. You're probably going to break the key anyway, because you can only do that much. But I think the main problem that comes from this change is the fact that now I think there's much less tanks that are playing, because
Right.
once you get into a certain level of keys, it becomes really hard to get into groups because there's less keys at that level, right? And people are more picky and stuff like that. That has always been the case for me. But this season, it feels like all across all the key levels, there's always, a bunch of keys there and there's no tanks. Like, and there's this
Well,
new
I
filter
I
thing.
have the answer. I know why that's the case. I've solved it. So I just pushed +6s on all of my alts. I've been pushing all these low level keys, and I was wondering, why are there no tanks in higher keys? But it's because every time you get one of those tanks that Jay was talking about that runs in, falls over, is made of paper, doesn't know what their buttons do, they flame you, and then they
Yeah,
leave,
it's
and then
always
they
the
go
healer's
queue up for
fault.
another +6. So they never improve, because they never look inward and look at their own mistakes, and they just stay at the +6 level. So if you want to find a lot of tanks, they're going to be bad, but they're playing like +6s, +5s, +2s. But that's where they are. They're not up in +12s though.
All right, we found them,
Unfortunately.
boys. We know where they are
Yeah.
now. Yeah, I'm kind of past the 6s though. I don't know how that sounds, but like I try to push hierarchies right now, even on my ults. And it's been the case, you know, I'm sitting in queue, trying to get into a key. If I'm on my ult, I don't get immediately invited. And then I finally get into a key, and then we spend 20 minutes more just waiting for a tank. And that's why the change is kind of having a negative effect, basically. Like, I like the change from gameplay perspective, but then it made it worse for pugging because now you're stuck in those queues for even longer times. And I don't know what the solution is here. We've talked about a solo queue system in the past. Maybe that could help, but I think the main problem here is that the tank row is just now something that people don't want to play. So even if you have a solo queue system, if there are not enough tanks playing, you're still going to be stuck in queue for forever, right? So it would be nice to see some way to kind of incentivize tanks to play more, because I think that's definitely a problem right now in the game. And I don't know what that thing is going to be. You know, I don't think throwing like a bunch of gold or maybe augmentation runes, whatever it is going to help.
You know, I wish they would just let tanks do the same amount of damage as DPS so they can have fun, and just adjust the mob health to make that accordingly. So it's not like, now the tank does as much to DPS, so the dungeon's faster. No, just give the mobs more health to accommodate, so that the tank can feel like it's not just tanking, like it's actually doing damage. It's besides just being a meat shield, it can do its rotation and parse as an actual DPS, not as a as a low DPS.
That's a wild take.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Whoa.
mean, it's not that different, really. You just add a little HP, let the tanks do their thing, But you still, there's a lot of burden. I'm a healer. We're all healers, and we obviously know we're the most intelligent players in the game.
Right.
But the tank, I know it's cringe. I'm being sarcastic. But the tanks have a heavy burden because obviously they're the ones planning out the routes. I can make a mistake as a healer, and I die, or one or two DPS die, and we still can finish the pack or kill the boss. If the tank messes up and he dies, it's a wipe for sure. We're not coming back, especially if it's the last 10%, maybe we could pull something off. But so there's a lot of burden. And again, going back to kind of the average age of the WoW player and the average toxic level of the average WoW player, that's a lot to consume as an individual person. And you got to have some thick skin. And so there's a lot of other things to play, I think, and sometimes people just don't see. And then you add on all this, like, if you're pugging on a regular basis and you don't have a set key, which most people don't, or set group, which most people don't, it's just a lot harder. It's a lot harder, especially once you get into like 10, 11, and then 12. These are like massive hurdles in a pug scenario, right? And it's a lot, even as a healer. But the tank has the ultimate burden.
Yeah.
Mhm. I think part of it is, if you want to play tank, you don't start playing WoW as a tank. Like, if I want to play tank and I have never touched WoW in my life, I go and play another game, because the entry level to tank is like you're saying, a lot higher, because there's no, if I load into WoW for the first time, get into some dungeon to level, I have no idea what I'm doing, and either everyone leaves, or they flame me, or something goes bad. But tanking, like, all throughout the game, like, structurally, is just wrong. There's nothing to guide new players into tanking. And I think, like, something as simple as, like, if you load to a dungeon for the first time, if there were like little guidance arrows on the ground just to show you where to walk next, like something like that at the very base level of dungeons, could help kind of like filter more people into tanking in the high end, because people just start playing with DPS or healers. No one starts as a tank.
Yeah,
But
that's a
Yeah,
good point.
Yeah, and even on the casual side, like I don't mean casual, but like as a new person, look, the three of us, if something we never played, we're gonna probably watch 2 hours of videos or try it out, jump in. We have 10, 20, 15 years of knowledge individually each in the game, and so we know what a rogue is without having to play it. We know some of the abilities. We understand the makeup of what you're supposed to do as a DPS or healer or tank. But if you're a newcomer to a game, we're getting into a different subject, but it's relevant to like the tanking. If you're coming in as a tank, you don't have what do you have to base it on? You don't know, and you're the leader for that group. You are literally the first person to go in. Healer and DPS, you're just following a tank, right? You're following their lead. But as a tank, you are deciding where we go. You're deciding the pace, the size of the pools. You're deciding everything. And so, it's as a new person, even if you're transitioning from like a DPS or healer to a tank, it's a totally new experience. It's so the level to getting into the game is hard, and so tanks they're a rarity right now.
Yeah,
And
unfortunate.
we are a little bit biased here because we're all healers, but I wonder if that's the case, if the tank role for some reason seems to be the least appealing to play. And I'll add something more here. This isn't going back to the dungeon design. There are a lot of tank mechanics that actually can one-shot the tanks, right? And if you're new to the game, what LB said, if you're new to the game and you don't know what's going on, you just get one-shotted, then obviously everybody's gonna blame you. You can blame the healer, right? But for example, like the first boss in Stonevault, right? Even if the healer is making the dispels correctly, if you're not pressing your defensive, you still die. The first boss in City of Threats, if you're not using your defensives there, you're dead, right? And there are
One of the
more
biggest
examples.
ones, the Dawnbreaker first boss. How could a new player know that even though you're not standing in the beam, it'll still hit the tank? Like, how are they to know that?
Yeah, and I think I'm not 100% sure about this, but I think the first one hits harder for some reason. The very first beams,
It's
right?
probably because the tank has to wake up first. They're like,
No,
"Oh
it's
crap, these are gonna
like
hit
I,
me."
I played the first time I played like in a +12, I think, and this tank was like, "Hey, can you link the first beams because it hits harder?" And obviously, it was a good tank. It
Yeah.
was not just a
Mhm.
random guy in a +5. And I was like, "Huh, is it?" And he's like, "Yeah, nobody knows why." And this is something, as LB said, like you have no idea what's going on as a tank, and now there's a mechanic that somehow hits harder the first time, but there's no tooltip or something to tell you this. But let's not talk about Dawnbreaker because there's so many wrong things there. That's a
Yeah.
different topic. Like too many bugs. I think that's a bug too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I keep wondering what would be what needs to be done so people can play more tanks, make it more appealing. Because and I don't even think like tanks. Some tanks actually do a lot of DPS, almost as much as a DPS player, right? So I don't know if you make them do more DPS if that's gonna be appealing enough for more people to start playing. But yeah, I maybe if they revert the change, which I'm kind of against, if they make them more tanky again, I'm kind of against that. But if it makes more people play tank and it's easier to queue into groups, maybe that's what needs to be done. I don't know.
I mean, I think they already have the answer, which is what Jay was saying. Like, or no, I think you were saying it. Adding like gold and augment runes.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
honestly, I don't care if I get gold and augment runes. Well, I used to not, but I ran out of gold for the first time the other day, so now I would care. But I mean, they do that for casual queues. No one's queuing for tank. Here's a bag of gold. I mean, why not do that in Mythic Plus
yeah.
or something like, or when you complete a dungeon?
Yeah,
I don't know.
at
The
least
tank gets
something,
something.
at least
Yeah.
something. I don't think that's the solution for like high keys and M plus, but at least it's gonna be something, and it's going to incentivize you. Because, for example, I played my Pali the last week because I was trying to gear it for break the meta, and I tank on it a little bit. And at some point, I was like, I should practice Holy because this is what I'm gonna be playing next week. But man, if I spec tank, it's like insta invites. It doesn't matter what
Yeah.
key level, what dungeon. It's like bam invited, bam invited. I can
Yep.
even, I can look into the group comps and decide, do I like these people? I have choice. So, uh, So
a
yeah,
different class, right?
yeah,
it's
like I
totally
can
different class
pick my
of player.
healer. I can look into the people's
That's funny.
IO because if I'm playing a DPS specifically, like if they get me into a key, I go into the key. Like I don't care who is inside. It's just an invite. I got invited. So exciting. As a tank, I can even pick. And there's so many keys to pick from because nobody has a tank. So yeah, that's the thing. All right. So I guess there's no easy solution, but I think we all agree that they should be working a little bit towards that direction because there's just a shortage of tanks right now. Let's talk a little bit about gearing. What is your take, guys, on like the gearing process specifically for ults with the crest system, etc.? Is it fast, slow for you? What problems do you encounter in that regard? Let's start with LB again.
Well, I'll counter your question with a question. Was anyone complaining during Dragonflight? Like, did anyone hate how fast it was to gear? Or like, has anyone hated those token traders? Like if you don't get like a
Mhm.
certain trinket,
Yeah.
this deep into the season, if I still haven't gotten a sack brood, should I
Yeah.
not be able to go and buy it? These things that, yeah, they speed the game up, and I guess they probably affect metrics like retention or playtime. But I mean, people will quit the game because it takes how many dungeons? It takes so many dungeons to max out a specific
90.
piece of gear.
Yeah.
Like 90. Oh,
Nowadays.
a piece. You have 90 to max out on your gilded right now. It's like 90
Yeah,
plus.
it's kind of crazy
Yeah.
though. But I mean, I think, yeah, I've said all I can say. I think they've taken a step back since Dragonflight. I don't know if it's bad right now, but it's definitely worse than it has been from a player standpoint.
Yeah. Well, what I can say is I kind of enjoyed this process on my main because now you have to, like the tiers, the mid track gear needs more crest to get upgraded. In the
Hmm.
beginning, that was kind of fine, but it was this week when I actually ended up using glided crest, right? I upgraded the last piece, so there's no more crest that I can use right now unless I get another piece or something like that.
Mhm.
That was way too long first on my main, and then all of the ults, because I play all the ults like LB kind of thing, even like a few DPS classes. They're so far behind, man. Like I log into my Paladin because I wanted to gear it last week. And the cap for the glided crest right now is almost 1200, right?
Yeah.
I had like 300 farmed, right? So I'm like 900 crests behind.
Yeah.
I'm not catching up. The one good thing is like once you reach certain thresholds for like the lower crests, ruined, etc., you get a discount on your ults. So instead of 15, you now need
Yeah.
10 to upgrade. That's very nice. But I think there's the same for the glided crest, but you need to have like mythic track piece on each slot, which I definitely don't have on my main, right? So I don't think I'll ever reach that before the end of the season anyway. So
Mhm.
I'm not getting the discount there. And at the same time, my main is piling all those crests and valor stones, which are just sitting there now because I cannot use them for anything. Maybe if they at least open it up so I can trade them to my ults instead of them getting wasted. And then what LB said, okay, they don't like the dinar kind of thing where you can get a piece of gear.
Mhm.
But that late into the season, come on, man. Like, put a
Yeah,
vendor
for
there.
real.
Okay, you don't want to do it for the start. That's fine. But that late in the season, specifically for ults where you don't have biz gear for sure. I remember the first time when Mists of Tyrna site was around, I farmed this dungeon more than 30 times on my Paladin to get the changeling and just wouldn't drop. And I was sick of
Mm,
it at the end. I was like, man, I've paid my dues. I've been here for so long. Like, I need to be rewarded now. It's not fair. I just keep playing this dungeon and I don't get the piece of gear. So there needs to be something like that in the game. And specifically for ults, as I said, it's going to speed up a little bit the process because obviously you're behind on ults. Just let them have more catch-up mechanics. It's not just like spend five less crests to be able to upgrade a piece of gear. So yeah,
There's
yeah, go ahead.
there's a tinfoil hat theory I have just hearing you guys talk about it. I'm thinking about like the PvP community, the raiding community, and the keys community, and kind of the fall off. And I know there's some data on some of that, but to me, keys are spammable. Um, the PvP community, if you're a pusher, you get your high rating, you stop on that character, you wait till the end of the season and you go for your 0.1% title. Um, but in keys, some of that happens, but I think the fall off is probably less because why did they remove the mythic gear from the and they probably said why, but I just thought it was strange that they totally removed the mythic track from the keys. And now the fact that they're not allowing us to get the tokens to get the trinkets at the end of the season. What are we like? We're beyond 2 months. What are we like 3 months in or something like that?
Yeah,
Mhm.
3 months in. I
Right?
think it
It's
was
just so far. It's
August.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, is it like a dangling a carrot? Like, oh, we know that nobody can unless you're a mythic raider, you're not getting full mythic for a while. Is this going to retain the player base a little bit longer? Whatever. So I don't know. Who knows? Maybe it's an experiment for them to see kind of how long we'll hang in there and how long we'll keep running these keys to get that one piece of myth gear. I don't know.
Yeah,
What
but
you're saying,
there's also the other take, because you said, yeah, dungeons are spammable. Okay, you can get punished and run Mists of Turnaside 40 times for a trinket, but then Spy Masters drops from the raid, and that's best
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
many classes, right? And
Yeah.
what do you do? What are you supposed to do now? Go raid? I
Yep.
watched Tetos other day in their podcast, and he was saying, you know what? I don't raid this tier. But I need the Spy Masters, and I keep bugging and offering gold to people just to trade it for me. And I was like, I'm gonna give you 200,000 gold for the trinket if it drops. And the guy's like, if you pay me 1 million, I'm gonna give it to you. So is this the type of experience that we're going for? Like, you're basically forcing somebody to pay gold for a trinket and do content that they don't want to do just because they want to play in Mythic Plus and they don't have their
Yeah.
biz. And as I
It's
said,
crazy.
it's fine in the beginning of the season, but like once the middle hits, whatever that is, just open the dinars at this point, and
Yeah.
that would actually incentivize people to play a little bit more, because I miss best pieces on my shaman as well, right? So I would just go and farm those dinars, and they could be like, you can get one every 2 weeks or something. You don't need to give all three at the same time or something, but there needs to be something like that. I'm quite positive that this is going to have a positive effect on people that still play the game.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, so season I think 1 and 2 of Shadowlands, we had like legendaries and so we didn't have oh my goodness, I'm blanking. What's the thing where you can trade your gear in to get a tier piece?
Uh,
Uh
the
The catalyst.
catalyst. Yeah, catalyst.
Catalyst, yeah, what the heck? But we didn't have a catalyst, right? That
Mhm.
just wasn't in the game. And then they added it, and everyone was like, rejoice, party in the streets. And here we are today, we still have it. They had a problem, they found the solution, and the game is better for it. The bullion system, the dinar system, like, why is that not seen as a solution to a problem of like I don't want to spam for the trinket. I don't want to do raid if I do Mythic Plus.
Yeah.
Or I remember back then it was as a healer who didn't have a ranged DPS spec alternative. So like I was a Mistweaver Monk. We don't have like a balanced druid that I can spec
Mhm.
into. I couldn't get the resonating reservoir. Like I just couldn't get it unless someone like a druid traded it to me. So like these kind of things, this is a problem, here's a solution, use it, put it in the game this late into the season, like you're saying though.
Yeah.
I
And they
just don't
know
get
it
it.
works. It's there. You don't
Yeah,
have to code
and
it,
we like
because
it.
yeah. All right. So maybe if we keep asking, they're gonna deliver. Let's talk about one more topic very quickly before we go to each hitter specifically, because that's the plan for next. But I know that you guys both raid. So how has healing been from raid perspective for you this season?
I'll let
And
you go first, Jay.
right.
Yeah,
I want to
I'm
hear what you
casual in the raids right now. We just started our guild, so I was just filling in, and but I think it's fun. I like the raid. I enjoyed it. I did all 8 heroic, and then I think I'm 3 mythic or something like that. The guild's 5, almost 6. And so I've done it with Holy Priest, Resto Druid, and Shaman. And all 3 of those feel fun. I don't know. I like the mechanics in some of the raid fights. I think, we could talk about some of the weak ores for like Brew Twister and stuff. But
Let's not.
but overall I think it's fun, and I think not all, I think discipline's in a pretty bad place there, and I think we're going to talk about some of that when we get into each individual
Yeah.
thing. But yeah, I mean, I think some are in the gutter and some are just performing very well, and but overall, I'm enjoying myself in the game in general. I'm playing every day, which is and this is probably the longest where I've played every day for a while, when I'm still not burnt out. So
Yeah,
I'm enjoying my time.
And
I
before
agree.
you go, LB, let us know where you are in the raid right now.
So we're progging the Silken Court on Mythic
Okay.
right now. We kind of just started. We took like a couple weeks off because we just had roster apocalypse, but we're back now. We're sitting at 20 members, so I can't get and I can't get in a car crash or anything, or else my guild's screwed. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a time. But funny thing, you mentioned Ovanax. I was just super conveniently on vacation when they killed that boss. So I did all the prog, didn't get the rewards. So I'm like, man, that boss was miserable. That boss was so rough. But no, I think this tier, I was really enjoying it until we got to Broodkeeper, because Broodkeeper sucks. Kaivesa is really fun. I
Yep.
really liked Kaivesa. Silken Court. Do y'all know the numbers behind Silken Court and the Queen? Whatever. I haven't even thought about her. Queen Ansarek, or
Yep.
what's her name?
Like pool numbers.
No, well, not pool numbers, because I think they're still both pretty high. But
Yep.
so in terms of guilds, I think the last time my guild looked at it, 600 guilds have killed Silken Court. So 600 are
Yep.
on the final boss. Of that 600, 300 have killed them. So it's a 50% success rate. If you pulled Mythic Queen and started progging her, 50% of the time you'll kill her, is, napkin math. But for Council, 800 guilds are currently stuck on Council. So there's 800. Well, there's 1,400 total on those two bosses. 300 of those 1,400 have cutting edge. So it's like those numbers, Silken Court, what is with this fight? Like, why has it not been like gutted?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the Halandris of the tier. It's ridiculous. But I don't know. I will also say though, I'm sorry to take all the time, but um, this has been the first season where I haven't wanted to raid on my alts. Like normally I do like LFR and normal raiding just to like mess around. I just haven't wanted to in this raid. It just hasn't captured me like the other ones, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Oh,
Interesting.
I will add to this. We're kind of in the same place. We're actually progging Kai'Vazir right now, almost done there. I'm definitely not looking to Silken Cord. But healing was kind of okay for me this tier. I think one of the main problems was not so much healing itself, but kind of like the raid design, because for Brute Twister, there was a point where we went down to 3 healers, right? And now we need 5 for Kai'Vazir. So and your guilds are kind of like, I guess, the same as mine. We don't have 30 people and the luxury to like change comp so much.
Yeah.
Maybe SaucyJay guild does, but
I do.
yeah, it's kind of like a hurdle for us, because right now we need 5 healers, but before we needed 3. So what do we do with those 2 extra people? And we had people switching specs and things like that. And to me, that's one of the biggest problems. Not to mention that in the Race to World First, they actually one-tanked Kai'Vazir, right? And then they had like a melee comp for Brute Twister, range comp for Kai'Vazir. This is a luxury that regular guilds don't have. You cannot switch your comp that much. So what I would like to see is a little bit more common design for like the raid, so you don't have to like pick exactly the classes or the range or the melee for every boss, or change the number of healers. I know they're trying to make it interesting. I know that looks good for like the Race to World First, but for regular players like us, that's more of a hurdle, right? And there was one more interesting stat. I couldn't find the chart, but there was like a video that Automatic Jack released, and it was showing how much HPS you need to do compared to the amount of health, the health pool of the players. And the amount has been increasing significantly ever since, like, I don't know what was the first boss on that chart, but let's say Antares or something. it was a very low value and now it's very high. And for the last 3 raids, it has been very, very high. So the damage is definitely a lot spikier, and there's more requirements towards healers, I guess, nowadays. And I don't mind that. But having the different comps and like having to switch specs and things like that, this is what gets it a little bit more annoying for me, because obviously not a problem for big guilds, but definitely a problem for us. All right. Okay, so I guess the next topic we can jump to is we can go through each of the healers very quickly, and we can talk about how they performed throughout the season, maybe some changes that we would like to see if those exist, and then how are the hero talents for each of them performed, because obviously each one of them has 2.
Well, some have one.
Some have one.
We can say it.
Yeah. So let's start with the Mistweaver Monk, since we have LB here, and that's his main. What I have on the screen right now is the breakdown of talents for Mythic Plus first. So 52% are playing Conduit, and 47% are playing Master of Harmony. I think those stats are a little bit crude because they just buffed Master of Harmony. For the longest time, nobody was playing Master of Harmony.
Oh yeah, it was a meme.
It was a meme. Nobody's still playing it in raid, etc. So that's one thing to mention. But let's start with you. We have the main Mistweaver Monk here. So how was Mistweaver been for you this season? And we're talking both about Mythic Plus and raid.
Oh man, if you are sitting there listening to this, maybe you're already like falling. Maybe you listen to podcasts while you fall asleep or something. I don't know. If you're driving,
We made you fall asleep already.
Yeah, it was me talking. I know it. But whatever you're doing, stop it right now and try Mistweaver Monk, because this is it's a shame that I started this challenge that I'm doing where I'm playing all my alts, because it's really taken time for my Mistweaver Monk, but I don't think I've had as much fun playing it. And can I talk about stuff outside of the hero talent trees?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, okay, Conduit with the Celestials is sick, right? It's a new button. It's like so much fun. It kind of does change your rotation a little bit, but incentivizes you to kind of do what the season wants you to do, which is like you have every now and then you can have like a cheaper, quicker cast Enveloping Mist. Just slap it on the tank if you have no one else. And like it really incentivizes like a good play style, and it keeps you safe. You can be like, okay, if I'm going into a plus 12 for the first time, I'll just take the safe option in Conduit. But if you're feeling risky, okay, you want to just take all your clothes off and bare butt naked down the street, you swap to Master of Harmony and you'll do DPS level damage like every few pulls. It's so sick. And ever since they buffed it, I'll swap to Conduit every now and then. So I'm like, okay, I know this is fun. But man, Master of Harmony, it's a guilty pleasure. You just do you apply a dot when you pop your Thunder Focus Tea, you like spill this bucket of a dot onto the person that you're hitting, and it just ticks for like 700, 800k, tick 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 tick, and you're a healer. It makes no sense. But and like a lot of people don't like it because you are more glass cannon. You don't have a healing cooldown like Conduit gives you, but you also can kind of melt like a single target. If you go to a single mob or a pack where one mob is the threat, you just dump your dot onto it, build your dot back up by just punching and kicking and healing around, dump it again on them, and it's just gone. You do so much single target damage. It's such a good time. I could talk all day.
Are you saying that we're getting nerfed soon?
Okay, I gotta go, guys. It was fun. Thank you. No, it's not broken. It just does a lot of damage. And it, like I said, it's glass cannon, so it does have downsides. Like I personally I can't play Master of Harmony in City of Threads just specifically for that final boss. It just I kind of feel like I need Conduit in my rotation or my cycle in order to keep up with that constant healing. Same with the globe boss. Like it has weaknesses, but it does so much damage. It's so sick.
Yeah. Oh, I'll second that, because I'll say this though. I haven't played Master of Harmony since the changes. So I haven't experienced that. But I had a lot of fun playing Mistweaver this season, and all the changes they did to the talent trees in the beginning, all of this were spot on. Like, it only added more to the fun of the class. I'm a big Mistweaver fan, by the way, so it was a lot of fun. Like, I would just say one thing. So it feels really good to play it, but one of the weaknesses that I see is when you get to that single target and it's a boss fight, right? And you have to heal, and you run out of cooldowns. It feels really bad at those points. I don't know
Yeah,
if it's just me or I'm playing it wrong, but I'm kind of lacking there. I'm struggling.
no, I mean that is one of the biggest like questions that I get is like so whenever I make a guide, I have to talk about Chi, which is your main cooldown. Whenever you kick, it also kicks up heals, but it
Yeah.
also shaves time off of your next enveloping miss. So it just like really amplifies what you want to do. But you can cleave your kicks. So like when you get down to single target, you're really gutting not just your own healing because you're kicking less often, but you're
Yeah.
kicking less often, which is gutting your chi. So like it does kind of kill a lot of what you can do. But I mean, you can still do so much throughput. Since your Tiger Palm hits twice,
Yeah.
it helps you stack up to 3 kicks with just 2 globals. Like you can still do everything. It just takes like one extra step. But I just got to say it. You know what does really good versus single targets? A
My,
giant dot, just a
yeah.
huge dot ticking their health away. Is this boss causing you problems? Well, boy, have I got a fix for you. Master of Harmony, just wipe it clean and you're good. You're good to go. But no, it does have a weakness, and I would say right now it's single target. But that's also why you don't see in rating why you don't see the ancient teaching, or I'm sorry, nowadays it's called Jadefire Teachings,
Yeah.
Awaken Jadefire, Jadefire Stomp. You don't see that build with Chi in raid unless it's a gimmick. What I mean by that is unless the boss has add uptime enough for you to cleave
Yeah.
to
Mhm.
get good value from it, which is what Ovanax does, kind of what Council can do. Like those are the only two fights where you see people take that, but that's what you play in Mythic Plus. So that is a problem though for sure.
Yeah. Oh, I'll add to that. So, before I get to the raid, I am having a blast playing Mistweaver most of the time. But then, as you said, specifically the last boss in City of Threats and some other specific single target situations, this is what's kind of like pushing me back. And I was thinking the other week because I knew that Break the Meta is coming up and Monk is eligible, and the
It
other,
is.
yeah. So
Oh,
Rest to
I might
Shaman.
show up.
Resto Shaman and Disc Priest are the only banned healers, right? So you can play
Okay.
all the other 4 healers. And I was thinking, all right,
We're game.
if I have to heal, do I play Mistweaver or do I play Holy Paladin? Those are basically the two options that I was considering. And I opted for Holy Paladin just because I was struggling in those single target situations. Yeah, I know, right? But other than that, I'm probably having more fun in Mistweaver in Mythic Plus, especially if you have like the big pools and,
Oh
um,
yeah.
yeah. So
Well,
in raid though, I'll add this very quickly. I used to raid on Monk, like that was my main for a couple of tiers when it was back, I think, in Shadowlands, when the meta was the fist weaving with the little ventier things that you would summon and
the
they would
Fallen
heal.
Order
Yeah, the
monks.
Fallen Order.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoy that, but ever since they switched to that single target with the suiting mist cleaving, and then I
Yeah.
kind of don't enjoy that playstyle, so I haven't raided on it ever since. And I hope that the fist weaving is an option. It's just not superior, right? It's inferior. But
Well,
like those
let
are,
me ask you this:
yeah. Go ahead.
would like a hybrid build tickle your fancy? Do you think?
Probably. Like the one thing that I don't like about the suiting mist built in raid is that you're basically targeting one target and you're overhealing, right? And
Hmm.
to heal everybody else. Like this is I can't explain it, but this goes so hard in my mind, like as something that's wrong, overhealing. Kind of like we'll get to that too, but kind of like with the druid, you're just halting everybody who is full health already, and I'm like, why am I doing this? My brain just refuses to do that because it's wrong. So maybe a hybrid build or maybe something, I don't know what it needs to be, but as long as I'm not like overhealing one target, then I think
Yeah.
I'll be fine.
Well, boy, have I got some news for you. The hybrid build is back. It's crazy. It's not. You don't sit there and soothing mist. You don't even take soothing mist. now, but
Okay.
every now and
Sold.
then you'll do your kick. Sorry, go ahead.
Sold. I'm sold. I'll try
Yeah, I mean
it.
it's so much fun right now. I'll be real. I was kind of bought in on the Soothing Mist build back when it was kind of a meme. So like Shadowlands Season 2, I remember I made a video just trying to make it work and I had a good time. But then having done it, all of the rest of Shadowlands and then all of Season 1 of Dragonfly, if I have to press Soothing Mist again, I might cry on camera. But nowadays the build is so, I'm telling you, it's so sick because not only have they buffed Master of Harmony, which isn't kind of relevant right now, but they've also added some like last minute changes to Mistweaver that have it's solved a lot of the problems that I had with it personally, and one of those was rushing wind kick. It's one of their new talents on their talent tree, but it replaces your rising sun kick. But when you press it, it just doubles the healing of your renewing mist for 4 seconds. So as long as you can rising sun or rushing wind kick every 4 seconds, you just like amplify, you boost all of your hot ticking. So you're not really sitting on one person. You're trying to maximize your renewing mist and also vivify cleave when you can. But it's like it feels less punishing to overheal now because you're at least getting a lot of hots for doing it, But it's a good time. Definitely
Yeah.
recommend giving
I
another
need to
shot.
try that because I've seen some monks do wild things with the rushing kick, so that's probably something to look forward to.
Oh yeah. The
Yeah.
damage that thing packs is ridiculous. It's insane. Mistweaver Monk's a DPS spec right now. Don't quote me on that. Don't nerf it, please. It's crazy.
Yeah, let's hope not. All right. Do you want to add something, SaucyJay, before we go to your disc
You
priest?
know, Dragonflight, I played a lot. I mean, Monk was the highest IO that I got in Dragonflight. I haven't played much at all this expansion for Mistweaver,
That's
so I
fine.
can't raid or Mythic Plus. I can't really touch on it too much. I watched a couple streamers, but yeah, I haven't played it directly. So don't have much
One
info.
last thing. One last thing. Jade Empowerment. Have y'all seen that yet? The talent?
What does it do?
It's the one that it makes your crackling jade lightning
Oh
hit
yeah, yeah.
5 targets.
Oh
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
I
And
love
it
that.
boosts its damage by 800%. Oh my goodness. Guys, play Mistweaver Monk. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Just give it a shot.
So just to say something, that's why I actually love Mistweaver so much this season. Because this thing cleaves, does a ton of
Oh yeah.
damage, and then it does a ton of healing because of your teachings, right? But then it goes back to the same thing. If you're on single target, then it's kind of
I
like,
know.
So
That's why I didn't bring it up earlier because you had
yeah,
mentioned single target. I was like,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. So it's amazing. Apart from like few single target scenarios where you might not enjoy it, Mistweaver is definitely something that you should try this season if you haven't yet. So totally recommend it. I think we can agree on that. We're gonna do a tier list later, so we'll see how we rank it there. But let's jump to the next spec, and that would be Discipline Priest, which is, I think, what SaucyJay is playing mainly this season. I've played it a lot as well. I think you're playing it right now, LB, as well. Is that correct? Yeah.
That's right.
So the thing with Discipline Priest, it is one of those healers that have one hero talent spec, and that's it. So everybody's playing Void Weaver, and that's both for Mythic Plus and for Raid. Oracle is basically not a thing. And I guess I'll start briefly on this one, but Disc has been the most fun I've ever had as a Disc Priest this season. Like I'm having a blast, and uh, obviously Oracle is something that nobody plays because it's not optimal, and then you have to micromanage additional skill. Like I'm very against that, but. Disc Priest is interesting because it is a priest, which means that you're lacking a lot of the spells that you need this season, specifically poison the spells. You're lacking interrupt, right? So you're basically getting carried into the dungeon from that perspective, which makes it very hard. You don't have good spot healing because you're amazing when you have your Mindbender and you're doing AoE healing, things like that. But then if you have to spot heal somebody and your pain sup is not, it's on cooldown, you're kind of struggling, stuff like that. But the gameplay style for me is amazing in the sense that it's relatively easy. You have just those few buttons that you're pressing. You're doing DPS as you're healing, right? And although it's hard, for me, it's kind of like a short vacation that I'm taking when I play Disc Priest, because I go into the dungeon, I spread my atonements, I start doing damage. I'm healing the people. If they survive, they survive. That's all I can do. I don't have an interrupt. So if you miss
What do you
that
want
interrupt,
from me?
it's on you guys. So I'm just pressing my buttons. I know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, and if the dungeon completes and we time it, we time it. And as I said, it's kind of like a vacation for me, and I'm just having a blast. And that's why I like it so much. How has it been for you though? Especially if you're pushing on it, SaucyJay.
For me, it's fun. It's definitely fun. I will say Oracle is viable in PvP, very viable in PvP. But yeah, Mythic Plus and Raid, forget about it. Voidweaver is so fun. Um, I will say not only poison, but Stone Vault and curses is
Yeah.
really bad if you're not stopping right. So there's some gaps. But you can kind of deal with it. I mean, I even the single target stuff where like you have to, if I run the talent that when my Purge the Wicked ticks, it boosts up my flash heal. And so usually I don't often have I don't there was a lot of complaints earlier in the season where people were saying like out of my pet I don't really have healing, but man, I smite so much. My pet is it feels like every like 30 seconds I have a pet. So I don't know. I super love it. External damage reduction with both pain suppression, 2 charges of that, reducing the cooldown with rapture and just spamming. I'm always spamming bubbles. It's like it's weaved in there. That way I get more PSs. Dome. It's just so fun. It's just so fun. I love it. I absolutely love it. And there's so many little um games within the game with Discipline Priest, with like permending and like I said, just doing bubbles as often as you can to get pain suppression down so you can do it more often. Fade is amazing. I mean, there's just so much that Priest has. This Priest, I'm just having a blast with it. So yeah, I absolutely love it.
A
Okay.
mind blast.
Yeah, exactly. Mind blasting.
I'll see myself out. For fun.
Okay. Oh, I guess what we can add to this priest is that actually it blasts in raid if you know how to play it, but not many people are actually opting to do so because we have 2 priests healing in raid. One of them is Holy, the other one is Disc, and the Disc is actually outperforming usually almost everybody on a good fight. So I guess the takeaway here, it's hard, but if you enjoy the gameplay style and you play it a little bit more, you can actually start enjoying it.
Let me comment on that real quick because this applies to DPS as well. I've noticed in the game right now, there's a very high zug mentality with both DPS and healers. And so like why would you need the min max discipline priest to be good at it. In raid, you could just zug holy priest and go
Yeah.
flash heal, flash heal, Halo and win. Like, yeah, it's so easy, right? Why have to like get your ramp timing perfectly right with the damage so you can blast off? And the thing is, once you have that practice, it's good, but that's a lot of min maxing on timing and getting your ramp out. And that's it. You have to really enjoy disc but when you do it right, it's hard to compete with.
Okay. And since you mentioned Holy Priest, I guess I could ask, do we even talk about Holy Priest? But since we're here,
In raid for sure.
let's
Yeah,
go ahead.
absolutely.
Yeah. So I guess there are people who play Oracle in Mythic Plus, according to Archon GG, like 33% of them. Everybody's playing Archon in raid though. Have you guys played it at all this season?
Yeah, I play a lot.
I haven't gotten to mine yet. I'm doing the push on Disc Priest first, then I'll start
Yeah.
on Holy Priest. But I will say Oracle on Holy Priest has surprised me. Like I thought it was a flash, like I thought it was horrible on both. But I think, is it Piety? Maybe you can help me out, Jay, but it's the one that you're healing into yourself,
Yeah.
cleaves healing.
Yeah, that's premonition. Uh-huh.
Premonition of
Premonition.
Piety, right?
Yeah.
It
Yep. And
did
that's
y'all
so
play?
good.
It's so
Yeah,
sick. Did y'all
it's
play
good.
Dragonflight season, the last season when we had the seedling
Uh-huh.
at
Okay.
Oh
all?
yeah. The
I
smoldering
mean,
seedling.
yeah, Holy
Yeah.
Priest was so good with that because you would
Yeah, it
drop
was
it, have like
amazing. Oh,
your
dude.
tier set was really good because you could like triple Serenity into it, and just like everyone's like, whoom, full health,
Yeah.
you know?
It was
I
cheating.
I
It was
think
cheating.
it's obviously Oracle's not as strong as that, and you have to wait. It's like half of the time you have Piety, but I mean, it's still good. It gives them another cooldown, which is kind of what, in my opinion, what they lack. They really just have Apotheosis, and that's kind of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why. I'm not actually sure why Archon is so heavy in Mythic Plus when I feel like Oracle is actually stronger for Mythic Plus, especially with
Well,
the mendings and.
I
It's
think
definitely
of the
easier.
Yeah, but also look at the numbers. It's 66 to 33. So I think of the three people that have played Holy Priest, one of them had Oracle, the other two had Archon. So
Yeah, and I'm
that's got
sure
to
my
be it.
buddy is the one that's doing Oracle right now, the one I
Yeah.
told him to play Oracle in Keys, so it's so
Oh,
funny.
it does say 11,000 parses, which I don't know if it's a big
No,
or
that's
small number.
fake.
We didn't see what the number is for the other classes, but yeah. So I didn't play it much this season, to be honest. The Halos are definitely a lot of fun. This is what I played with.
Yeah.
But for me, I don't know. It's a personal. This is a very personal thing, but the Holy Priest just feels like a budget version of like Rest to Shaman or something, because it is
Yeah.
still a reactive healer, but you
Yeah.
have much less utility. You're still a priest, so the interrupts, the dispels are not there. And you have a little bit weaker AoE healing compared to Rest to Shaman in Mythic Plus specifically.
Yeah.
So again, that's very personal. Like if you are a Holy Priest fan, you're probably having a blast and you're enjoying it. But since I'm a Rest to Shaman, I'm like, I just prefer to play something different. It does perform very well in raid. Like I would
Mhm.
probably give it a shot, but just so many other things to play, so there's no time to experiment with Holy Priest in that. And yeah, that's all I can say.
Well, I think like you're saying about it being just like a gutted version of Resto. I mean, it really is though if you think about it, because Resto, even just the small thing of like maintenance healing,
Yeah.
like hey, everyone's taking tiny little ticks. How do I trickle in healing to combat that? Resto, you have a couple different ways, but number one, you put down healing rain,
Yeah.
and they stand in it. But Holy Priest, that's oh by the way, that's one global. You spend
They
one
don't
global, you
stand in
get
it, but
rain.
that's a different topic.
I know the dreamland scenario. Let's imagine. But as a holy priest, it takes 5 globals to renew everyone, and that's kind of like the only equivalent that I can think of. Whereas if I can't remember the word that it's called, but it's the one that turns your sanctify into like it sanctifies the ground and it keeps it there.
Yeah.
Kind of turns it into like a healing rain, basically. If they detach, I think it's divine word. I don't know. I haven't played Holy Priest this season yet. Don't flame me. But if they detach that from that talent and just make it like mainline, then it would kind of like. But then that's still like, what does that do? There's just so many holes in the problem that is Holy Priest. I
Yeah.
guess that's why it's called Holy Priest. Okay,
Yeah.
we can move on. But it's so unfortunate.
He's with the zingers
I
tonight,
didn't,
huh?
dude. It's late. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm accidentally walking into him.
Yeah, sorry for keeping you late. But
Oh
let's
no, I'm
let's
happy.
let's just jump on some of the other ones. Then, my favorite restoration shaman. Now I guess I can go first on this because this is my main. But I kind of disagree with the numbers that we see here because
I
it
was just
says,
thinking
yeah,
that.
it says that 94% of the people are playing Totemic in Mythic Plus, and then there's only 6% playing Farseers. So there's like 78,000 parses here, definitely more than the Holy Priest. Um, One thing that I really enjoyed for Resto Shaman this season, obviously, it's the Pug King, right? It's probably if you're pugging, this is the best class that you can pick for many number of reasons. But what I really enjoyed was that both Totemic and Farseer are actually viable, right? You can play either. All right, Totemic is much easier. Like it's very easy to play. It's very easy to manage. And you have to press a lot more buttons as a Farseer, and you have to maintain a lot more skills and micromanage them, but both are viable. It's completely different play style, so that gives you the option if you want to play one or the other. It blasts in rate as well, so it's basically the perfect class for me this season. And the other thing that I'll say is right now the meta is kind of like you're playing your healing stream totem instead of the cloudburst, which cloudburst again is the much more difficult one to manage. So it's probably one of the best iterations that we've seen lately. And literally everybody's playing it on high keys as well, especially if you're pugging. Yeah, Disc Priest is there. We didn't mention this, but Disc Priest is mainly there because it's very good in an organized group. If you're playing in pugs, you're probably having much harder time, especially once the key level gets higher. That's not the case for Restoration Shaman. I think even in high keys, you can pug it and have pretty good results. And yes, I am biased because this is my main, but I think this is a very good class and it's in a very good spot this season. Have you guys played it much?
Oh yeah, it's up there with Mistweaver for me. If I'm being totally honest, I love this spec, and I love the direction it's gone into. What about you, Jay?
It is absolutely amazing. Totemic. I mean, I tried Farseer and I'm like, why? I don't want to think. I just want to drop Healing Rain, drop a couple totems, maybe do a chain heal, do a healing wave. I can do stops. I have a kick, stuns. I mean, it's amazing. It's so fun. If you're engaged, you like engaging and actually because I feel like on the Disc Priest, you're doing damage and stuff, but you're just doing damage, right? And
Mhm.
but on Shaman it's like you're interrupting, you're stunning again, like you're stopping, like it's just so fun, man. It's
You
so
have all the dispels that are needed this season.
yeah, you have
Yeah.
Yeah,
everything.
all
Yeah,
of them, literally
yeah,
every single
yep.
one.
Yeah, it's so fun.
It
It's
is
such a
going.
cool
It
class.
is going to struggle, I think, a little bit next season because there are some diseases there, as far as I know. But uh, generally, this season has been amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I agree. I think it's when you look at it from the sense of a pug, it is just it can it can make up for all of the messed ups that the tanks and the DPS can do if they're not kicking. I mean, you just have so many tools at your disposal that are just like oopsie fixers.
hmm
And so yeah, for a pug, it's the king for sure.
Yeah, I think that's the main difference between Disc and Rest to Shaman this season. Rest to Shaman, as we said, it's reactive, so if something goes wrong, you can react. While Disc Priest, you're blasting, but
You
you're
have to be
preemptive
precise too.
healer, right? So
Yeah.
if something goes wrong, it's a little bit harder to react.
Yep. Yep.
All right.
yeah.
So let's jump to Holy Paladin then. That had a very interesting iteration this season and the beginning of the War Within. I made a tier list in the beginning, and I said that Lightsmith is going to be absolute dog water, specifically in raid.
Really?
Yeah, I was sure that this thing is never going to work in raid. And then I was like, yeah, maybe there's going to be some niche situations where you're going to use it in Mythic Plus, but everybody's going to play Herald of the Sun. And then they made some changes now. Everybody switched to Lightsmith because I think people were playing more Herald in Mythic Plus specifically in the beginning of the season, and they switched to Lightsmith potentially after the latest changes. And then in Raid, I could have not been more wrong on this, but I think everybody's playing, 90% of the people are playing Lightsmith. This thing turned out to be amazing. And it
Yeah, it's
is
insane.
yeah, it is kind of like the Farseer for Shaman. It's harder to play than Herald because you have to micromanage more things. But having your cooldown of Avenging Crusader is what you use with Lightsmith, which is your wings being 1 minute cooldown and your DPS skills are actually healing during that window. Having 1 minute cooldown on Avenging Crusader actually makes it feel really good in pugs because you have a button that you can press every 1 minute and everybody's immortal basically, right? So that feels really good. Having all the utility that Lightsmith is providing also feels really nice with the shields, the weapons to do damage and save people from mistakes. So although Herald seemed to be like the main thing in the beginning, I think everybody's playing Lightsmith right now and they're having a blast on it. And as I said, I plan to play it in Break the Meta as well. Is your experience different though?
Uh, so I am currently what I'm doing in my challenge is I'm pushing Paladin and Disc. I'll do one key on one, then hop to the other and alternate, and they're racing. So I am pushing on the Paladin as well as the Disc, and I I am on the Herald of the Sun train, not because it's better. Obviously, the numbers are pretty close, like just looking at the raw numbers, but it's
Mhm.
just because whenever I would swap to Lightsmith, since I'm doing this very specific challenge, um, my damage is even more low than what it's supposed to be. So when I'm trying to scale my healing off my damage, it was like not doing it. So I might make the swap back to Lightsmith soon now that I've kind of got more gear. But man, I'm like counting down the days because Herald of the Sun, I played it back. I played both of these back on beta, and both of them were unreal. Like I don't know if y'all played any. Did y'all do any beta keys?
Yeah, I
didn't.
did.
These were both disgusting because Lightsmith, the sacred weapon, the sword that
Yeah.
you would give an ally, dude, that thing was crazy. You
I
would give it
think
to
it
like
was
your
bugged though. It was bugged on beta
oh
because it was doing like
oh
DPS
yeah.
numbers. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like you would give it to a DPS that has like I think just high APM, like a caster that like an arcane mage that's
Yeah.
just like boom. They don't have high APM, but like they're just like always hitting the boss, so it would just proc proc
Mhm.
proc proc. It would be crazy. But then Herald, it used to when you pop your wings, it would put 4 beams out, and the beams were stronger. But now it only puts like 2 out, and you can get it up to 4, and they're much weaker. So it's just like it feels like no matter how you cut it, like it does feel like a gutted version. But like you said, Lightsmith has kind of been buffed up a bit, and I really do enjoy everything that Lightsmith offers to the spec
Yeah.
for sure.
How about you, SaucyJay? Did you play it?
Not yet. I ran a couple keys, low keys. It did a lot of PvP, and I gotta say in PvP it feels really good. I think it's probably one of the better healers, but not in keys yet. Probably towards the end of the season, I'll probably get some more in a couple more
Yeah.
weeks.
Oh, I guess we have to say here that this is another class that both specs, both hero talents are actually viable, which is a big plus because you have options, right? And you did mention, LB mentioned that damage about healers. I think damage is quite irrelevant. Healer damage is quite irrelevant
Oh
this
yeah.
season. Although it does feel good when you do a little bit more and you pop on the meters. But yeah, I think the class is in a very good spot, and we have to mention that there was basically a dead spec in the end of the Dragonflight. They did the rework somewhere in the middle of Dragonflight, and they completely gutted it after that. Like it was buried underground, and nobody played it. So
Yeah.
I'm actually very happy to see it back. And I'll mention one more thing. I guess the Avenging Crusader type of gameplay, I enjoy it, right? It's kind of like a Mistweaver, and I enjoy Mistweaver as well because you're doing damage and you're healing, right? But I guess not many people actually enjoy it. You probably all know Mir, which is like the best Holy Paladin in the world. He's actually not playing it this season because he doesn't like Avenging Crusader. He's playing a Protection Paladin because he's like, I don't want to play Avenging Crusader, and this is what I need to play, right? Herald doesn't feel that good in the higher keys. So I just thought that's a fun fact to mention. I guess not everybody's enjoying the Avenging Crusader.
Interesting.
All right, let's jump to the. I don't have my Evoker here. Let me just switch very quickly. But
I'm not
Preservation
surprised.
Evoker.
Yeah,
I'm
you and
not
Blizzard both.
surprised.
Yeah,
No,
Blizzard
no,
doesn't
no.
have it either. Don't worry.
I swear
They
I had
forgot
it.
about it.
I swear I had it. But yeah, so Evoker, Preservation.
What? These numbers are
No,
crazy.
no,
Okay, I'm
this is
sorry.
Mythic Plus. This is Mythic Plus, right? So
Still, I'm like, I love Flame Shaper. It's so fun.
well, what you see on the screen right now is 99% of the people are playing Chrono Warden in Mythic Plus, which means that
It's
basically
so
nobody's playing
boring.
Flame Shaper, yeah. But
What are
then,
we doing? Well, no one's playing Evoker. Let's be real.
okay, that's
Yeah.
the other topic, yeah. So it's low parses, and then everybody, well, not everybody, 80% of the people are playing Flame Shaper in Raid. But yeah, let's throw it to LB first, since obviously he has an opinion there.
Well, so to completely branch off, I want to talk about one thing, and that's kind of go back to what we were talking about earlier for anyone that heard it. But in the raid, the the top whatever guilds killed all the late bosses and however many pools. We all watched the race world
Yep.
first. It happened. It was like they had like double Pres Evoker. They were cranking with Flame Shaper. It was disgusting how much healing
Yep.
they could do, and they could pop health bars to full. It was broken. We all knew it. But now I think this is part of the reason. This alone is part of the reason why we're seeing so many guilds struggle in the last few bosses, because we're trying the same thing that they did. Obviously, they're gutted versions of the boss comparatively, but we're trying it without the broken Flame Shaper that they had. And
Yeah.
that's why we're 5 healing Kaivesa. That's why like everyone's struggling on the last few bosses, like, or on the last 2 of the last few bosses. Like, so it sucks how much Flame Shaper has been axed. And looking back at their Mythic Plus numbers, I think they could really not just use a buff, obviously, because people should want to play them, but if they can kind of not restore all the glory, obviously, but if they could restore some of the glory to Flame Shaper in a way that would impact their Mythic Plus, especially, it would. I think Flame Shaper is way more fun than Chrono Warden. Maybe that's just bias, but it would bring some of the player base kind of back to the spec, because everyone and their mother made an Evoker at the beginning of the season and then swapped to Resto Shaman week 3. You
Yep.
know, like everyone did that. So they need to do something back to Flame Shaper. They can't just forget about it. You know, it's
Since we're
sad.
on the topic, I'll just add one thing. Going back to the rate and the Flame Shaper buffs and then nerfs. It took them so long to nerf it. Like they let the race go, and then I think there was a little bit more time after that before they actually nerfed it. And as you said, everybody knew that this is getting nerfed. It was so broken. It was obvious. And if it was a DPS, I think they made some changes during the race. They made some adjustments in tuning, right? If it's DPS that's broken, they get axed immediately, right? And the Flame Shaper took like 2 or 3 weeks, and that's bewildering to me. Like, why? You know, let them heal the bosses, and then everybody else. And like the biggest impact is what you said. Everybody switched to Evoker because it was broken, and then everybody had to switch to something else after they nerfed it. And that's a dynamic that I think should have never been allowed to happen in the game.
And if you let something broken go all the way through the race to the end, then I mean you kind of have to let it sit at the top, because you know the impact that that's going to have on the rest of the player base.
Yeah.
But now, like, I know I have never known this guy to not play Priest. He's either Holy or Disc every season. He swapped to Evoker this tier, and he's like stuck on it. He's like, I'm not gonna sit here and re-gear my Priest for Mythic rating.
He got
like,
screwed by this.
Yeah, it's very unfair.
All right. Oh, let me talk about Evoker healing a little bit as well, because I'm actually a big Chrono Warden fan. You say it's boring, but to me, Evoker is one of the more complicated classes to play because you have so many skills. All of your skills have a cooldown, by the way. It's not like you can spam something as a Shaman Chain Heal or Healing Surge. Everything has, it might be a 10-second cooldown, but you incur a cooldown once you press a button. So you have to be thinking very carefully what you're doing and how you're doing it, so you don't get locked out with everything being on cooldown. And then you have the stasis with all the interaction between the different spells. So you Verdant Embrace before your breath, so it heals for more. You know, there are so many little nuances, so many little details that you need to be good at to play the class properly. Which makes it, as I said, one of the more complicated classes for me. And when you add Flame Shaper and the Engulf, for me, this is like exponential difficulty, because now you have one extra skill, but this skill has so many different interaction with everything else that you already have, and it has interactions in between itself that it makes it like, I'm not saying it's bad. Obviously, it's really nice gameplay.
I see what you mean.
Yeah, but
it's like the spec is hard. Why make it harder?
Yeah, it becomes even harder, right? But having said that, that's why I haven't played much Flame Shaper for that specific reason. But I enjoy Chrono Warden so much because the hero talents basically complement every single button you have in some way. Like it gives you a cooldown, it gives you haste, it gives you a halt on your Spirit Bloom, etc. Right? All of this is actually amazing, and I would say this season this is probably my favorite healer. Honestly, I had so much fun on Evoker playing it, despite all the difficulties that you have with the range and people not placing themselves correctly. Because if you don't have everybody with your breath, they're in trouble, but they don't care. You know, it's a healer problem, right? Despite all of that, I had a lot of fun playing it. And the HPS is there, the throughput is there, you're doing a lot of damage, you know, it's a lot of fun to play. But I think one of the main reasons why this spec is kind of like neglected is the fact that Augmentation Evoker still exists in the game. We had a different chart last week, which was showing the meta and what everybody's playing. And I think it was like 98% of all the people that play Evoker in general, 98% are playing Augmentation. right? Which leaves 2% for devastation and preservation. So somehow I think this is the biggest problem. I think if augmentation was not in the game, this could see a lot more play. And the worst part is that augmentation is definitely used and kind of like required in world first keys, which is what we watch on streams, etc. Right? And we kind of start thinking, okay, if they're playing it, then we have to play it as well in our keys. But our keys are completely different. And I would even argue that augmentation is really bad in low keys, right? Because first, you need to have a good aug. Like, this is a class that you can play it in any level, but if you min max it, the difference is significant from timing a key or not. And then, even if you play it correctly, you're kind of dependent on having two other players that are good, right? Because you're buffing their damage.
Zero.
Yeah. So
a million times zero is still zero.
exactly.
Like, you buff a bad player, they're still bad.
Exactly. So augmentation is kind of overrated in low keys. But people still think it's required, and this is hitting hard on devastation, which, by the way, I also like, and preservation. So less people are playing it. And to me, I don't know. For me, that's a big problem. I don't like how they introduced augmentation to the game. I like the idea behind it, but I don't know how it. I don't like how it works out. And this is hurting a lot. Probably one of the nice healer specs that you can play. But I'll leave it to you guys if you have a different point on this.
I think you nailed it. I mean, you know, it's required for the highest keys. Everybody watches that, and so that means we have to have that, and so nobody's gonna play Prez, right? And unfortunately, even Dev, I can't remember the last time I played with a Devastation Evoker in a key. I don't even, maybe once or twice, maybe.
Yeah.
Few augs, but I, typically yeah, you see them. I still see them, but it's not. I think today I ran probably like 5 or 10 keys, and I think I saw one aug. But Prez, it's a great class. It's fun. I had a lot of fun in Dragonflight. I haven't played it at all. I leveled it, but I haven't played it in keys. I plan to play some in keys. I like the difficulty of the combinations and the interactions and the abilities, but it's difficult. It's definitely difficult. And when you start looking at, again, going back to Zug Zug, Aug, you can Zug Zug. You can actually be pretty bad Aug and still get invited to keys and get carried all the way up to probably
that's the problem.
100.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Because you just, even if the other DPS are good and you're terrible, you're still gonna clear the key if you're at least pushing prescience and and doing your Ebon Might and stuff. So, which is unfortunate for the other two classes because, and it's not only that it's a game design issue as much as it is social, right? Just the community and WoW and them just saying, oh no, if that dog don't bring it, basically. It's unfortunate.
Well, I would also argue it's kind of a scarcity issue. Like, look, we live in post-augment world, okay? We just have to accept that augmentation exists. Like, you can dream about it not, but we're here. But if someone invites an evoker to the key, like, I see people type, "Can you play aug?" Like, "Can you play aug?" Like, it is a thing. But if there were more support role, like support classes in the game, I know it would be like, it's a very fine line between broken and not, because that's just how support works, and that's how volatile a 5-man group is. But if you do start opening that door and creating more support roles, like branch off Totemic Shaman and make it its own spec, boom, you augment people's attack speed, their spell casting speed, like stuff like that. If you start opening that door, make Fistweaver a thing, then all of a sudden we can open the door of 6-man Mythic Plus. We have a tank, healer, support, bunch DPS, but I guess at that point, then I guess that wouldn't really solve anything, because then everyone would play Og or Totemic or whatever. But I just think, like, right now it feels like with them being the only one, it's also kind of inflating their numbers a bit in the low end, like you were saying, Jay. Like, people think they're more necessary because
Yeah.
they're rare,
Yep.
And as
Yeah.
you said, it's a very fine line of when is this required? Like if you have 5 people and one of them needs to be support, is that required, or you can actually go with 3 DPS? And that's very, very touchy area. I'll add one more thing, which is kind of very personal, but I used to raid on my Evoker a little bit, and I used to have a blast with the Emerald Blossom build in the raid, where you just drop those things
a
and they
good time.
multiply, yeah. And this kind of got killed by the Flame Shaper, because now if you go and you play the Emerald Blossom, my guild actually did like a heroic oath run or something, and I just joined to help them because they need an extra healer. And I went and did the Emerald Blossom build, and they were like, why are you lasting the meters, Wolvy? What are you doing? And I'm like, guys, I'm just having fun. You know, I don't want to play Flame
An alt
Shaper.
run. Yeah.
Send me that log. I want to flame you
Yeah.
for it.
Oh,
That's
okay.
funny.
All right. I got
Yeah, the
flamed.
other, I will say one more thing too on the
I got flamed
AUG
enough. I'll
or
just say that.
Okay.
that's funny. On the AUG Prez topic, you know, I think I lost my train of thought. It must not have been that good. That's the old man stuff. Sorry, guys. I had something
It's
good,
okay.
but
There's
yeah.
only 4
Oh,
preservation evokers playing the game right
yeah.
now in Mythic Plus, so you're not really upsetting too many people. Don't worry.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, exactly. No, the other what I was thinking is the viability of it. Right now, it's really good though. It is good if
Yeah,
you
it is
play it
good.
well. It's amazing, and that's But when it was in the gutter, when they gutted it after when it first got released that whole season, and
Yeah.
literally everybody was playing AUG, even in PvP. Um, nobody else could play anything. It was like AUG or nothing. So they gutted it, and then there was never an AUG anywhere, right? And
Mhm.
so I think they're trying to find a balance, or maybe just switching it up for them. But when it's good, it's good, and when it's not, it's not. It's like it's either fully alive or fully dead. It's never in the middle. It's not in a place where it's balanced. It's one extreme or the other, unfortunately. So they have to figure that out.
And it's a
Yeah,
hard
and
problem because this is the way it's designed, right? There's no middle ground for it.
Yeah.
right. Well, they also, I mean, we can't even ignore their own issues. And I know, like you were saying, a good Prez player, one is playing with good people that know to stand in front of them, so they get hit by the sphere temporal anomaly
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
and dream breath, so they know this, and then you also know to hit everyone with it. So that's not really an issue. Verdant embrace, you know to press that on yourself after you echo the target, like not to do these things so you don't fly into danger.
Yep.
But if you're a new player who maybe played Og because it was flavor of the month, or you're just trying out Evoker, if you do a couple keys, you'll die to your own Verdant Embrace
Yep.
like 10 times. You're like, what am I supposed to do
Yeah.
here? Like, I have
Yeah.
to sit there and cast a living flame? I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna fly to them and heal them and die to it.
Yep.
Or I'm trying to hit this hunter, but he's out, in Narnia, just nowhere near me so I can breathe on him. So like it does have its own issues, and I think they affect the lower rated people more, but that's you're shaving off the bottom there, and it's really hurting the player base a lot,
Mm.
I
Yep.
think. But
So probably the barrier to entry is quite high for Preservation
It's
Evoker. I would agree to
yeah,
that.
for sure.
And then you would learn some tricks. Okay, let me rescue that hunter so I can breed on them, and you bring them back in,
Yeah.
and they just run out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
Or
then
I
you
need I
both
need a
get hit by
few
the frontal.
dispels. I need a couple dispels,
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
how can I
use
get
your
more than 2? Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, we have to talk about this too, but let's jump to the last spec, healer spec, Restoration Druid. What we see on the screen right now is the data for Mythic Plus. Half of the people basically are playing Wildstalker, the other half is playing Keeper of the Groove, and then in the raid, everybody's playing Keeper of the Groove. But generally, the spec doesn't seem to be in a good place. I know that LB actually played the Druid already, and you pushed to KSH on it. So, what is your take on this?
Look, I started on Resto Druid, and one of the main things, the biggest noob trap, is when big damage is coming out, don't fall into the habit of regrowth spamming. Trust your hots. Have your efflorescence down. Have your 2 life blooms out, or back then it was just 1. Have like all of your pre-hot your rejuves, and then the damage hits, and trust those. Like maybe pop flourish or something.
Mhm.
But n- it was so jarring for me going back and playing this after a few years, because nowadays regrowth packs a punch. It wallops health bars, and it was tough getting used to it. But the moment I did, it's like this thing clicked for me. And I think that's why a lot of people are struggling with Druid, because it doesn't feel like you're kind of ditching your basics or your like basic knowledge, in order to like trust in your regrowths more now, because they were my top healing source. I'm pretty sure, like, as I was
Yeah.
getting to the higher keys, because they heal
Mhm.
so much. But I really like it. I tried Wild Stalker. I used to love cat weaving. Like, I would just farm it all day in Shadowlands, even when it wasn't good. But Wild Stalker to me just did not feel as engaging, so I didn't enjoy it. Although I saw the strength to that, and then on top of that, I know some people play Wild Stalker, but for the healing, not even
Uh-huh.
for the cat weaving.
Yeah.
That was boring. I'm sorry, maybe it's just me and my ADHD, but I could not do that all day. So I played Keeper of the Grove, which is boring, but at least I knew it was going to be boring, you know? But like I said, like some of the changes to Resto Druid, kind of like Disc Priest, how we were talking about how their biggest issue is like if one person takes a smack, how do you get them to full before they take the next one? Resto Druid kind of has that, especially with this affix, where like the affix comes out, I need to top this person up really quickly. But having two charges of Swiftman hits
Mhm.
harder. Your nature swiftness regrowth hits harder. Like it is taking so many steps in that right direction, but still it's not quite there, I think. And I
Yeah.
think part of it is because of this dungeon pool, the affixes, like something's not feeling right. And that's why, just like Disc, you see this played kind of toward the top end because it can do like damage and it can stealth and like do some fun things in the MDI. But like other than that, what does it do that other healers don't, you know? But that's
Yeah.
my spiel on Resto Druid.
Yeah, me, I like it. I just don't like the APM. It just, I mean, outside of wild growth, you're pressing and if you're like me, you're pressing it 3 times to make sure you get it, or maybe even 4 times to get it. So there's a lot of clicking on Resto Druid. I like both Wild Stalker and Keeper of the Grove. I was playing a little bit more Wild Stalker towards the end in keys. I think it's really, really fun in raid. I like it because um, it's a little more forgiving than Discipline Police in raid, where I can blanket all, I can ramp up, and then I could just spam regrowth for free basically. Once I hit my flourish,
Because
and
of
it's just like,
abundance. Yeah.
yeah, and I could just go crazy. And I mean, I feel like Resto Druid cranks healing if you're paying attention to the damage, because I play disc free, so I have to pay attention
Yeah.
to damage patterns, and hit it exactly right. On Resto Druid, I don't even have to hit it exactly right. I can blanket and do my thing, and even if I'm a second early, it doesn't matter. If I'm a second late, doesn't matter. But it cranks, and I think it's fun. It's just too many APMs, even in the even with like you have your recovery abilities with nature swiftness, swift man, and I don't feel like, yeah, I feel like it's in a good place. I just think it's too much work. It's way too much min maxing. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
just a lot of work for other classes that just do it super easy.
Yeah. I
It's
will
really,
say I had to relearn the dungeons when I pushed on the druid, because when I push on my monk, the timings are different. I know the boss is about to slam, so I press Chi right before the slam to get the
yeah.
shield, and then like do my stuff right after then. But with
Great.
druid, I mean, I had to relearn boss patterns,
Yeah.
because you have to like treat every mechanic so differently. And the cool thing, what makes druid really cool, is how adaptive their spells are. So like wild growth is an AoE heal spell. However, if you need more single target healing, you put your efflorescence down on that target or the tank, or where they can be in it, and you wild growth to pile another hot on. So
Yeah.
it's
Oh
like
yeah.
it's very adaptive.
Yeah.
So also stacking that on top of the having to know timers, and I had to like revamp my UI because I just didn't have my big wigs visible. So like I had to see like
Yeah.
10 seconds before stuff came
Yep.
out and stuff. But
Exactly. 10
it's
globals.
but
10
it's there
globals.
is fun in that. But yeah,
It
10
is.
globals. It feels like there's 10 globals you have to do.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
I'll jump in here, and I'm biased, but I just don't like the playstyle of the hot stuff, etc. You know, it's probably a mid thing. And I will say, in the beginning of the season, by the way, I was watching LB stream, and he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna do all healers to KSH," and I was like, "Let me do that," and I actually did. I got all the healers to KSH except Druid. My Druid is still not on 2K. I think IO, and half of the keys I did as a bear. I guess that tells you enough, but um I kind of like don't like the fact that I got, as you said, I got stuck casting regrowths all the time when people make mistakes, and I'm trying to just salvage the situation by single target hotting them. The fun in Druid for me back in the day was the complexity that came from like switching into cat form and then going out and managing all of the stuff. And I guess this is what Wildstalker is all about, but as I said, the healing doesn't seem to be there when I'm just in cat form, so I have to jump out, I have to spam the regrowths, and I just didn't have fun. I just didn't enjoy the season. Again, it might be a mything, but it's definitely something that I still don't want to play. I don't even know if I'm gonna get it to KSH. Like I might skip it this season.
I wouldn't blame you.
Yeah. And then in rate, as I said, it's like halting everybody when they're full health. That also goes a little bit against the way my brain works. So maybe biased, maybe not, but this is definitely something that for me it's not in a good place right now. And I will add one thing. So that was something that everybody played at the end of Dragonflight. It was in a really good spot. Like people were pushing on Druid in high keys. They were playing it in all kinds of different content, and they good at it. Same thing as the H-POW after the rework. So now it's down in the dumpster. Nobody plays it, and it's not in a good spot. And again, that's something that I don't think it should happen in the game. It should be not that extreme when something is good and then they just make it look so bad and feel so wrong. Um, I'm kind of even afraid that this could happen to like Shaman in the next year because they're kind of like in a good spot right now. So there's a fear in me that could follow the same way
Well,
as H-POW and Druid.
I don't think Shaman's at risk right now of what's happened to Druid, because like one of the big like phenomenons that's kind of sneaking underneath our radar is that they're kind of disc priesting every spec.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
they're shaving identity off of each spec and adding in this like element, which is the reason why people enjoy Mistweaver and Disc Priest, and to an extent Holy Paladin, where your damage like scales your healing. Like
Yeah.
your healing is a direct modifier from your damage. But they've kind of like they tried to give Druid this identity. I don't know what talents it is, but it's like they gave them some talents where like your ferocious bite, your like some
Yeah.
of your spells like heal off of your or heal off the damage, and it just didn't stick. So now there's just dead talents on the tree. And I mean they're not like dead, but they're just, I don't know, it's kind of like it's shaving off some of the identity and trying to force the cat weaving playstyle when the cat weaving playstyle is there. Like no one's
Yeah.
denying that. And also I'm pretty sure like your starfire can heal too, so that part of it's cool, but I don't know, it just doesn't feel the same. Like it it's missing something, and I think there's a hole in its talent tree where they tried to discify it, but
Yeah,
it
and
just didn't
unfortunately,
stick.
they did so many changes. They tried hard, but somehow they like, I don't know if it's tuning. I think personally, I think it's a little bit the gameplay style right now, but maybe they need to keep iterating on that. All right, so let's finish by doing a small tier list with everything that we've said so far, considering raid healing, mythic plus, the hero talents available for each of the specs. We can go around the table for each healer. If you don't want to rate something because you haven't played it, that's fine. And then we can try to agree where we're going to put all the healers in this tier list. So I guess we can start in this order here. We can start with,
I think
yeah,
before we start,
go ahead.
what are we gonna do a universal criteria?
Yeah,
Do
like
you,
I would say use whatever criteria you want. Like how does that healer rank for you personally? And
okay.
if it's difficulty, it's difficulty. If it's whether it's performing good in Mythic Plus or Raid, that's fine. Whether the hero talents are viable, right? What is the enjoyment for you, basically? And would you
Okay.
recommend people playing this class, etc.? And again, it needs to be your personal, and then we'll see if we can agree where we put it, because I would assume that we're going to have different opinions for some of the healers specifically. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say one thing before we do this.
Mhm.
My take on this is that every single healing spec is playable to a very high level.
Oh yeah,
It's just dealing with the community and the response from the community on the specific spec that you pick. So, but
Yeah.
all of these are viable.
So I
You
think
know.
one way that we're not going to rate the healers is how they perform in World First Keys, because we're not doing those,
Yeah.
or race to World First. So I think it's going to be how you rate it, and that's going to be kind of like the common way to view the healer, because we're doing like regular keys, regular rate, etc. All right, so let's start with disc, and I guess SaucyJay can go first on this because that's your main.
Yeah, I think for disc, you know, when it comes to keys, I think it's in a good place. I think it's the most probably the most min maxy out of all the healers as far as like understanding the dungeon and the timings because there's no reactionary there's nothing reactionary to it. I mean, you have to know what's going on. So that can be a little bit of a buzzkill, especially as you're starting to learn it. Um, you know, for people like us who play all the healers, that means we've done tons and tons and tons of keys, so we already kind of know the dungeon. But if you're just, you know, looking to get into a healer and something like that, it's to me, it's the most min maxy, maybe except for maybe Prez Evoker can be a bit. You know, you really have to kind of know the class to get around some of the stuff. But I love it. It's my main right now, and I'm having a blast. In raid, I just go easy route, Zug Zug, and go holy. So in raid, I kind of rank it lower. So on all in all, it's extremely fun. It performs well. I'm in maxi, so I'd probably give it a low A.
Okay.
That'd probably be my
How
rating.
about you, LB?
So this is this is probably the one that's gonna struggle the most in terms of criteria. Because if
Yep.
you go off of vibes, apart from J, it's easy F tier. But if you go off of like strength and top end keys that like none of us can get invited to, obviously it's an S because there you're in comms. You can say, hey, I'm stunning, follow up my stun with your stun, then kick this and kick that. You don't have to worry about that. But as a pug, or as a healer, actually, I used to say we heal the bars in front of us. I used to say that. But that's not true. There's so much more information on the screen than just your health bars, and part of that is casts. If you see two web bolts going towards Tony,
Mhm.
you start your cast into Tony so that it hits right after those bolts are between them. You know, there's so much more information, and um, being able to stop those casts from going off is big, and only having Psychic Scream is really tough. So look, don't get me wrong. Disc is S tier, but in my tier list, where I live in Pug World, it's so strong that it's up toward A, but it's not quite in S. So it's like it's top of A tier, but it just can't get into S tier in Pugs, in my opinion. Although its throughput's insane.
Okay, I'll be completely different from what you just said, but the vibes for me are S tier. Like I'm having a blast this season playing it. I'm not saying it's easy, but as I said, it's kind of also like a little bit of a vacation for me because I don't care about interrupts, I don't care about the spells, I just don't have those things. You know, you guys
It
deal
is
with it,
nice.
right? So
Yeah,
from this
true.
perspective, vibes and like having fun for me this season, it's like the best that this has ever been. However, if you ask me what healer do I play, I will never recommend this, man. Like especially in
Mm,
pucks, right? For pucks, I would say this is F tier because it's so hard, and it's not just hard healing, but now you're lacking all the utility that you need to handle some of the problems that the dungeons present. So, for that purpose, I would agree. We can probably agree to put it into the A tier. And it's a very, I guess, class that's very specific to how you take it, how you like the gameplay, and how much are you willing to expose yourself into playing this in keys, because it's definitely hard.
yeah,
Um,
and I will say like this one, it just has the most variance. In the best hands, it's the
yeah,
best healer right now. In
absolutely.
the worst hands, it's probably the worst healer, or second worst, or third worst, but it's
Mhm.
down there. So I think like although you're seeing it in A, no, it's kind of in S, but it's also kind of in B. It depends on who's
I
playing
would
it, you
I
know.
would even go and say go further and say it's kind of an S if you started playing it and you enjoy it. But if you're starting to
Mm,
play healer, don't pick disc. Go
yeah,
try
for sure.
something else. Learn how to heal on something else, because if you start on disc, it's gonna be F for you. It's gonna be below
Yep.
F for you initially. It's so different than everything else. So just keep that in mind. Alrighty.
I'll be right back. You guys continue. I'll be right back.
All right. I guess you don't want to rate HPOW anyway.
Yeah,
but
he doesn't want to get flamed by the HPOG community.
yeah,
He's gonna put him in F, by the way, guys. Flame him in
yeah.
the comments.
Let's rate this one without him. So HPOW, how has that been for you?
So the way that I play it, I would say it's like low B because, like I said, I'm playing the weaker Mythic Plus version, which is the Herald of the Sun. But the the Lightsmith Avenging Crusader build is so good. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so good and it scales very well versus any dungeon mechanic. Having a 1 minute cooldown as a Mistweaver Monk who has that, I know just how powerful that cycle can be, and you have enough cooldowns to fill that gap. So I would say it's a lot stronger than I thought it would be, but I don't know if I can't put it in the same tier as Disc. So if I were making this tier list, I would try to spread out the whole thing and use all 5 tiers, and I think I would put it in B
Okay.
for myself personally.
Fair enough. I would personally, I also want to put it into S because, and the main reason is I'm so happy that it's back. Because,
Oh yeah.
like, people know me as Resto Shaman, but the other healer that I've always played was actually Holy Paladin. And I didn't play it at all in Season 4 of Dragonflight because it was so bad. So I was so happy to see it back. I'm also very delighted to know that both hero talent specs are available. So
Mhm.
Herald of the Sun not only plays well, but like the fantasy behind it with those beams and the Avatar of the Sun, all of this hits very hard for me. It's very nice. And then the Lightsmith brings all of those tools that I'm playing with right now throughout the season. But also Lightsmith, as we said, it includes a lot of micromanaging of the additional skills that you're getting, so it's not easy to play. So I can see how that could be a little bit discouraging, and people kind of try to avoid it. So I'm willing to not put it into S for that specific reason.
Now, I will say, like your main reason for putting it into S is that it's back,
Yeah.
and I agree. Like like I said, if this were a vibes tier list, I think there's no denying it's an S.
Yeah.
Because like not only is it back and it's like very good and it's kind of restored a little bit of what it can do, it's also gained its identity back where like they're the shock healer, and
Exactly.
I really appreciate that. I really like that they've kind of given that back to them, and it's good. So I would put it in S in a vibes tier list, but for the way that I like to do, unless we're actually fully going off vibes, which I'm down to do,
Yeah.
I would probably not put it in S, especially not above Disc
Yeah,
right
I
now.
totally agree, especially when we consider that Avenging Crusader is not a playstyle that everybody likes,
Mm.
agrees, and vibes with specifically, and it's definitely harder to play. So for that reason alone, I'm willing to put it downwards as well. So question is, do we go low A or high B?
I don't think we should clutter the A too much because I'm gonna stand my ground, spoiler alert,
Okay.
for a specific healer. I would say B, but like just know that that's because Disc is the real S. Really, it's supposed to be like S plus, then
Okay.
Disc and S, and then they're basically an A. Is how I'm viewing this.
All right. We could have put S plus because I have something for S plus as well. But let's put it like that. We can just put it into B, and then everybody can just keep in mind what we're saying, I guess. All right. So let's go to Holy Priest next. Do you want to start on this one?
I will. I don't have as much experience as with the current iteration of Holy Priest, but I did play it a lot in the past. Like I know what's going on. I will just say that they kind of suffer from the priest syndrome, which is where in Mythic Plus especially, you're going to have a situation where someone levels a priest, and the strength of priest is, hey, if one spec is bad, swap to the other one. But that's also the downside from the other half of the
Yeah.
coin. If disc is great, no one's going to be playing holy, and you kind of just suffer from that. So I think the worst pre-spec will always look worse than it is, and that's kind of what happens to holy. It's not as bad as people say, but it does have all the same weaknesses and lacks some of the strength that disc has. So personally, I would
Which one?
I cannot put it in F tier. I don't want to get roasted in the comments. I don't think it's F tier, but what are you doing to me? I'll put it in C.
Okay.
I don't think anyone, surprisingly, I don't think there's an F tier this tier
I
personally.
I
Though.
have one, but we'll get there. I'll add up just because basically everything you said is exactly how I feel. I already said that to me, Holy Priest kind of feels like a budget rest to Shaman version, and then
Mhm.
you have a very good point. Disc is now superior, so everybody's playing this, which makes Holy Priest look even worse. And you know, I'm just I haven't played it much. Let's say that. So I don't know if I should be rating this at all. But personally, for me, I think F is going to be too harsh as well. But I also don't see how we can put it higher, especially in B if we have the Holy Paladin there. So for me, it's also going to be a C tier. Do you have a different take, SaucyJay?
I think it's better than C, but I again I think you run into what do the other healers currently bring? And when you compare it to other healers, I think that's why it feels like a C.
Yeah.
But I think from a performance sense, it'll get the job done, and it doesn't require a whole lot of like I need to understand everything that's happening. Because I mean, unless it's like Guardian Spirit's like the only thing that really you need to put it on before they
Mhm.
die. Outside of that, I mean, everything else is reactive base, and there's some maintenance that you have in there, but um, it's kind of it's a fun class to play, and I think it's a very easy class to learn how to play with. I think it's pug friendly as like lower keys, right?
Mhm.
If you're trying to learn how to heal, I think
Yeah.
it has enough utility. It does have PI still. So there's some cool things that it brings. It's not as strong as the other healers when you look at the full toolkit. Um, but it can
Still a
still get the job
priest.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
let's also mention it's actually blasting in raid. It's not bad at all there.
It's
But
Especially
blasting
heroic
raid.
raid. It,
yeah,
it makes
Yeah.
heroic raid look easy, like straight
Oh
up.
exactly.
man.
Yeah, but
So
I
easy
guess our
too.
main perspective is a little bit leaning towards Mythic Plus a little bit more. So do we put it into C or we want to try to push it higher?
I think C is okay
C is
with
fine.
the caveat that, you know, when you're comparing it to everything else, this is a tier list, so it's meant to be compared with others. So I
Yeah.
think in that respect, it belongs in C.
Okay. All right. So let's jump to the Mistweaver next. No way we don't start with LBNinja here.
I think I think we all know where it goes, and I
Yeah.
don't think I have to say much. It's
Definitely
the
goes to F.
easiest.
Yeah.
Should we add an S plus plus at
The
the top?
easiest S. Okay.
No. So one thing that I think a lot of people are sleeping on is a lot of people know Disc does good damage right now, but not a lot of people know that Mistweaver is doing insane damage right now. Like you
Yep.
said, Crackling Jade Lightning is
Mhm.
like the top of the charts, and it does so much, and that does so much healing. So not only did buffing Master of Harmony make Master of Harmony better, but adding in Jade Empowerment has allowed us to take Master of Harmony, because before, even though Master of Harmony did good damage, we couldn't really take it because we needed the safety of Conduit. But having your Crackling Jade Lightning at 2 charges be an AoE a cooldown has filled that gap. So you were doing so much damage. The problem is, like you said, healer damage doesn't matter as much as it has in the past, but the way that you do damage as Mistweaver is very important, and having being able to pick a priority target really helps. And the raid healing is pretty solid right now. It's not as good as it has been in the past, but it's still very it's I mean, look, they should be at the top of HPS charts because they literally bring nothing else to raid right now.
Yeah.
But it's like passable in mythic raiding, I would say. But you know what? Screw that. Buff their raid healing. Put them in S tier. Easy.
All right.
No, if I'm being real, it's I would put it top of A. I think
Okay. Top
on
of A.
average it's better than disc, but like the best disc player can get further with disc. But yeah, that's where I would put it.
Okay. How about you, SaucyJay?
I need to play it more. Honestly, I mean, you know, watch some people play it, and have been in some when I'm playing lock or tanking, and you know, it functions. It's good, but I want to be able to play it, and I need to play it really to be able to you know, really assess where it belongs. I think the days of spin to win that was like big in Dragonflight, and that went away. And so I'm kind of excited to play it. I just haven't got there yet. So I'm gonna rely on you guys. I know you guys have played a good amount of it, so I'll let you guys put it where it needs to be.
I'm a little bit biased because I'm a fan of the play style. It's still the spin to win is still there, in big pools. You
Oh, it
just,
is. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
it's,
I don't
yeah,
think it is right. Well, okay. It depends on which hero talent tree you're running. Like you do not press spinning crane kick with Master of Harmony. I'm pretty sure ever.
yeah.
Like
Oh,
it's
let me say this.
very
So my ranking is from the perspective that I haven't played Master of Harmony, and obviously I'm missing on this. Like I need to
mhm.
try it. But in general, as I said, I'm a big fan of the gameplay style, and I actually have it as S in my personal tier list.
I
So
mean, I think I agree with you.
yeah,
I'm kidding.
we have to put it up there. Yeah, so it's a fun gameplay style. It's a little bit different than everything else because obviously you're melee and you're doing damage to heal most of the time. But it has been very enjoyable in Dragonflight, and I think they only build up more. They added more stuff, which was
Mhm.
very very nicely done for the War Within. So I actually have absolutely no problem putting into S tier as
I
well.
mean, there's no arguments for me.
Yeah,
Memes aside, like I really do think the Crackling Jade Lightning, the Jade Empowerment buff or addition has like it really has sent this into the next level. Plus, rushing wind kick.
yeah,
It you can't really get away with it in Mythic Plus because it does share a node with Jade Fire Teachings,
yeah.
which is what makes your Crackling Jade Lightning heal more. But in raid, it really it doesn't remove, but it really reduces how much you're punished for playing well. Because Mistweaver's a really weird spec. Imagine this, Jay. Imagine you're playing Discipline Priest and you get reduced healing for each atonement you have out.
Hmm.
That's kind of what happens with Mistweaver. They punish you for having more renewing mists out, but
Hmm.
rushing wind kick kind of helps with that. So it's like it's just in such a good spot right now. And for the average player, you can crank with this damage and healing alike. So I would argue S for sure.
Okay, so I guess that's an easy yes. Take it as you will. The next on the list is the Preservation Evoker. And I'll start with this one because for me personally, if it was my personal tier list, and I know that I'm not going to get flaunting comments and stuff like that, that is actually S plus for me this tier. Like I had so much fun playing it, learning the complexities in Mythic Plus, playing Chrono Warden. Obviously, I don't play Flame Shaper that much, and as we said, it's hard, right? Because you have a lot of interaction with your different skills. You have to know how they work with each other, stuff like that. And then you have the range limitations, and then people need to know where you stand, right? So all of this makes it even harder to play. And for that reason alone, my personal experience is S plus, but I don't think I would even put it in S from that regard, because that's another healer that I would not recommend people to play if they're starting because it's very tough in general. But if it comes to fun and learning and playing it, it's definitely top notch for me. From that perspective, I guess we can put it into like A for me, low A, but I might be willing to go even lower if your takes are much different than mine.
Mine's gonna be low, so I don't know where you're at.
I would it's just so hard to gauge Prez because one, the player base is so low. But it like we talked about it earlier, there's so much variance in the spec just like with disc. Like and it's not even up to you. Disc it's up to you. If you're playing bad, you'll just do horribly. But Evoker, if you have a group that's not like coordinating with you, it can be very punishing. But you can't make a tier list based on the worst case scenario every time. I think Prez Evoker has surprised me. The raid healing is still very good. I would also kind of go like kind of up there with Disc. Once again, knowing that Disc is S tier in the right hands, I think it Prez can be up there like between maybe up to like Holy Paladin level. I would
Mhm.
put it. I wouldn't put it down with Holy Priest, but probably with Holy Paladin.
Okay, so it's like in between those two for you.
Yeah, I would say yeah.
So my take is the biggest hurdle is going to be. I'm not going to focus on the gameplay. Look, the throughput. So Blizzard's done a good job. Kind of going back to what I said at the beginning. All these healers can do the work. The problem is the people, and you're always going to run into what LB said earlier. Hey, you're Prez, but can you play Og? Can you play Og? Right? And so there's just this nasty scenario where if like you're not Og, you're kind of, what are you doing in here? We don't like dragons, right? Unless you're an Og. Um,
Goosenecks.
yeah, exactly. So from that perspective, is it a fun class to play? I haven't played much this season. I just leveled it, like I said, and got a couple little pieces, right, like during pre-patch, but or early release to whatever. Um, it's very fun to play when I played it. I just think, man, getting into keys, if you're going to be playing it, it's going to be rough, I think, from the bottom to the top. Um, it's not the easiest class to play. It's fun, but you run into a lot of limitations, and there's a lot of nuances in that class. When you can just go Og and just
Yeah.
hit a couple buttons and you're good. So for me, personally, I like more of a challenge, so it would go higher up. But in the general sense, on a tier list, comparing this to others, it's all the way. It's for me, it's with Holy Priest, because you have to look at kind of not even this group of healers here, but also the sentiment of the community in keys. I'm just talking keys mainly here, and augmentation, just the dominant force in keys in general, and the want and desire to have that. And one of my good friends, Italian guy Adriano, even he will be like, "Oh, it's Og. Okay, let's bring it." Because I mean, DPS like to see big numbers, right?
Yeah.
They want to see those big numbers, and so you're always going to run into that. So for me, it's a bit on the lower side, just in general, kind of the bigger picture. Personal playability, it's always high because it's difficult. I like difficult.
Okay. You want to add something, LB?
I mean, I know, like, I know Og existing really does just like cut them down. But like, if you were to make this tier list based on you're queuing up for a group and 5 people or 7 people, I'm sorry, 7 people with the same IO, same item level queue up of each spec,
Yep.
and your group does not have an Og in it, I think you would take the Prez over the Holy Priest. And I think you would argue, like, if your group doesn't have a lust, you would take it over the Paladin. If
True.
you know, so I think it not only brings that, but it can also remove like some pretty important debuffs like bleeds. Like
Yeah.
the bleeds aren't as terrifying this tier, but like there are some bleeds that are just nice to know you can get rid of. And I mean, also like Holy Priest, they do have GS, but like you don't have a way to like shove your tank into a big pool and time a key in a pinch. Like you can time dilation your tank as an evoker and like let them go crazy for that final pool if you need to. Like
Yep.
just Holy just doesn't have that. And I think that lack of tools is why I would kind of like argue their throughput is up there with the other healers,
Yeah.
but they have more tools. So I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I guess we
Good
can
point.
agree that this is kind of like Disc. It's a lot of fun. You can get a lot of enjoyment from playing it, but then it's hard. And then if you're just starting and you're learning, it's probably not the best option to go to. So what do we say? I guess you guys want to lead it down to B. Maybe we put it in front of Holy Paladin,
I would be more with Jay in the fact that it's probably behind Holy.
behind Holy. Okay.
But know this, Wolfie. Okay, this to me, the B tier is my A tier. So
Okay.
you're A tier in my heart. Okay, the Mistweaver's in S plus plus land. Everything else is like one tier pushed up. So
All right.
you're A tier in my
As I
heart.
said, Press for me is definitely S tier this season, but this is like personal, right? And
Yeah,
again, if you ask me, are you recommending this healer? I would probably say no. I like
yeah.
it, I
Mhm.
But it's a
enjoy it,
good
but
time.
yeah, it's a very good time to play it.
Yeah.
All right, Restoration Druid. After everything I've said earlier, this is like the easiest F tier for me because I didn't enjoy it at all. It's hard to play like everything else, but then you're healing for less. You have to press more buttons. You have to press them harder. All of those things, and just the gameplay style for me is just not clicking. It's not there. So for me, that's the easiest F. But let's see how high you guys can push it with your arguments.
I think earlier this season, I definitely would have agreed with you. I would have been like, okay, this is down there with Holy and F, but Holy has been surprising me with the numbers it can put up. But I'm sorry, Holy Priest. But Resto Druid actually really shocked me. Like I thought they were in a boat where you just don't have enough tools to deal with things, but I was surprised at how well their kit can handle different situations. And they do suffer in the wrong hands because they have discs problem where you have to ramp
Mhm.
pre-damage a lot.
Yep.
Um, but I think they're so much better. I think every healer is so much better than you think right now. I think right now we're all kind of wearing these goggles that are just Xalatath's bargain, that are just ruining the tier force. But I think Resto Druid is better than we think. But I think they just do everything that disc does, but worse, other than a few things. Like they have some things that they obviously do better, but I think it just like I would never bring a druid to my key if there's a disc that's also queued up. And for that reason, I'm out. No, but for that reason, I would put them down there, like probably below Evoker, maybe in front of Evoker, but only because of Mark of the Wild, because they do fill B-Res and Mark of the Wild.
Yeah.
It's just like Evoker is great and fun, but I would personally put them between Paladin and Evoker, if I'm being honest.
Okay, so middle B tier for you. How about Jay?
Yeah, I think I love Resto Druid. Love it. It was originally I made a tier list going into the War Within on like which characters I was gonna play first, and I had Resto Druid at the top. My poor hands, man. I can't. The APM's
Just
just
don't cat
it's
weave, I'm telling you.
no, I wasn't
Just
even cat weaving. It's just like like in raid and in keys, it's like you have to you have to keep people blanketed.
mhm.
Like, because once the damage comes, you need to be able to press, your regrowth and it needs to hit, right? And it needs to actually have an impact. Because if you don't have hots on them, doing regrowth spam does nothing, right?
And by regrowth, you mean flourish probably, but
No, I mean regrowth, right? Like
Regrowth scales pretty heavily off of how
oh,
many
okay,
hots you
with the
have now.
mastery. Okay, yeah,
It's
yeah, all right.
different, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
it hits hard when you have hots out, but if you don't, it's kind of weak.
yeah.
And that's why I started playing Wildstalker, because the extra hot, even though it doesn't heal for a lot, when you start to add your efflorescence and all these other hot, it cranks, man. But there's no rest. There's absolutely, you're never resting as a resto druid. And then when the build that I was running, I'm only at 2200 and I stopped playing. I pushed that up like the first or
Mhm.
second week. Um, the build I was running, you go but then you can Wrath and Star Surge to get mana back. So you're
Yeah.
never resting. You're never resting. And yeah, I guess I could have went cat weave, but did the same thing. You're still pushing buttons
Do you
like
wanna
all
know
the
the
time.
trick to
Yeah.
your hands? I am the same way. I'm 28 years old, my hands are 58. But if do you have a stream deck or anything external, like anything that you can press a button on, or a Steam Deck? I don't know. But if you get something like a foot pedal, they
Uh-huh.
make the triple foot pedal.
Yeah.
Make one of them your wrath, one of them your regrowth, and one of them your rejuve, and it'll shave so many globals off of your hands. Like I use the 12 button mouse, but
Uh-huh.
I
That's the
use
one I
a
have.
I
Yeah.
use a Steam Deck or Stream Deck, whichever one's the cheap one, and I have wrath, rejuve, and regrowth. I never told anyone on my stream. No one ever knew it, but I would just do that and just press it with my toes. That's it.
That's
Wait.
hilarious.
Are you saying that you're actually healing with your feet?
Oh yeah. No
Holy.
shame. Okay, I have to, after this season, I have to get a surgery on my hand because it's just absolutely tarnished. But during the beta, I was playing Mistweaver and we were still spinning to winning, and I literally made a macro that was just spin to win, spin to win, spin to win, or spinning crane kick, and I would just like step it with my foot and like just keep pressing it. Like that's all I did.
That's so
That's how I
funny.
leveled from 70 to 80. Is I just foot pedaled spinning crane kick. It was
Man,
That's
so
so
nice.
I
funny,
have to
man.
try this now. That sounds like amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Holy.
I
Yeah,
hope it
man.
doesn't get me banned. That can't get you
I might
banned,
I
can
might
it?
try that even with my smiting and my void blast on priest, because I'm
It
telling you, I mean,
helps.
the priest, it doesn't feel as bad, but man, the
Yeah.
wrestler druid, Yeah, I mean, I gotta. I don't have an APM counter. I don't have that weak core, but man, I gotta think Resto Druid for sure for me
And
is the one that just is
APM
like super
aside,
fun.
I made a video at the end of Dragonflight counting how many keybinds and buttons you have to be pressing on each of the healers, and some of the counts were like above 40. Like you need to have more than
Well,
40, right?
I will say like Druid, yeah, Druid's the worst for that because you have to swap forms.
Yeah,
Yep.
But Fluid Form has helped
Yeah.
the buttons
For
you
sure.
press a lot.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
Yeah.
you used to have to press Cat Form and then
Hmm.
press Shred, but now you
Yeah.
can just press Shred and it just
Yeah.
hops you into Cat Form. It's so nice.
But
Yeah.
my whole
But
point is that
still, yeah,
I'm running out of keybinds, you know, because
yeah,
I have a 12 button mouse as well. I have everything
Yeah.
binded there. Then I have my keyboard, and then I start doing some weird stuff like Shift +4 and Alt
Hmm.
+5, and like my hand, you know. And now you're saying I can heal with my feet. That's 3
yeah.
extra
You can.
keybinds, man. That's
Or
amazing.
what you can do is you can make a macro where you're both casting Shred and Wrath. I had it on the beta,
Yeah, yeah.
but I
I
had
have
that as a
that.
macro. Yeah, so like when you're in melee range, it'll swap you to cat form, you'll
Yeah.
cast Shred, but when you're far away, it'll Wrath. So you can do some things like that too.
All right.
Yeah.
So that's an
So I
amazing tip,
mean,
by the way.
yeah, I like that. I might have to check that out. I all in all, I think I like Resto Druid. It pumps in raid. It pumps in keys if you know how to play it, but you have to know how to play it. You have to know the dungeons. Um, I don't think it's very noob friendly. I think like if you're a new healer,
Mhm.
there's a lot to it. Again, I think Holy Pally and probably Holy Priest would be the easiest ones as a new healer. Um, I could see it in the bees, somewhere in the bees as a Resto Druid. Um,
All right.
for me, I mean,
I guess I'll comply with you guys here. Obviously, you know where I want to put it, but
I think you should give it a second shot. I think you should give it a second
Yeah,
shot.
try it
yeah,
again and rely on your regrowths. You'll have a lot more fun.
yeah. I mean, I'm done with the other healers. So after Break the Meta is done this week, I'll have to do something. And, you know, pushing like 13s and 14s takes a lot of time in queues. So maybe I just hop on my Druid and play there, you know.
Mhm.
It's going to be much better experience. All right. So I guess mid B is fine for Druid. And then we have the rest to Shaman left on here. Obviously, I'm biased, but that's like the easiest S for me. The Puck King for sure, and the iteration of Resto Shaman this year has been amazing. You can pick both hero talents, it blasts in raid. The healing stream totem meta is also something that I'm enjoying, although I used to be a very prominent Cloudburst totem
Same.
player, right? So everything just clicks and it vibes with this class, so it's easy as for me, but that's where I usually put it. So let's see what you guys have to say.
I'll concur with that. I mean, it's so fun. It's so easy. It's not difficult. I mean, it's really. I mean, I'm talking totemic. I
Yeah,
did a little of the Farsi or whatever, but I didn't like keeping maintaining like the ghosts and stuff. I didn't really
casting
enjoy
your
that.
healing rain.
Yeah. So then
Oh
I
yeah.
switched over and it was like instant healing rain with these little motes that did extra for like it was super passive and it just worked and like just the chain heals just going crazy. I mean, it just so fun. You have kick, you have stops, stun. I mean, roots. You have all these cool things. So fun. I mean, even if you're new to healing, Resto Shaman is amazing. You don't need 400 binds. You could really get away with just a few, and it's really fun.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, no objections here. Because, like you said, for like a new player, look, I don't think any healer is easy. I'll make videos every now and then where I'm like, oh, this is the easiest healer. But being the easiest healer is still harder than being the hardest DPS. We can say that, right? No one's gonna cancel us for that. But I do think they are easy, and I think in my challenge I highlighted it. So my Resto Druid push. By the way, I push 3 days a week, so it's not like, and it's only for like 4 hours a day. So like I'm not pushing every night. Basically, it's very controlled. My druid took over a month, and I was like, okay, cool. My shaman took like 2.5 days. Like it was disgusting how
It's so
quick I
crazy.
pushed this thing. Like, well, from a certain threshold to 2,500, but it is a lot easier and it's very forgiving in the sense that like holy priest you mentioned like holy priest and shaman are kind of related, like they kind of do similar whack-a-mole healing, but Holy Priest, you have your fort buff, but fort buff doesn't even pale in comparison to what Shaman gives, which
No.
is not only a mastery buff, but they also give what do you know what it's called, Wolfie? Where it's like you just get bonus health. Like everyone's at
Yeah,
like
the ancestral
110% health.
vigor and then downpour, so you can get
Yeah.
20% health onto people. Yeah.
How is this okay? How is it okay? I mean, it's so dumb. Like you think, picture this: you're in Arakara and you kill the first big spider, and you move to that second one that does the call, the Brood Lord or whatever it's called.
Mhm.
That ticks. It does like 70% of your health across
Mhm.
like it does like all of your health and then some over a few ticks. If you're playing your shaman, sometimes you just put one chain heal between the ticks and everyone's fine. Whereas on your paladin, everyone's taking 150% of their health. Like you have to pop like wings plus time your divine toll plus get the holy shock in your beacon of virtue. Like
Yeah.
it's a lot. Whereas like shaman just can easy mode a lot of things like that. Plus poison cleansing. Like look, Mistweaver enjoyed its time in S tier, but we can, take down the curtain. You can move Mistweaver down to top of A, and we can put Shaman in its rightful place. I'll admit it, there was bias earlier, but I definitely think they're kind of alone up there in
I
S
was gonna
tier.
ask you, do we put it in front or behind
It
Mistweaver? I
goes at
think
the
we can agree
top,
that.
top
Yeah,
for
it
sure.
definitely.
I
I
wouldn't
think it.
put Mistweaver down though.
I know I can read a comment already that says, "Wow, of course LBN would put like
Yeah,
a
these
Mistweaver in
biased
top."
people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dislike.
Well, take it as you will, guys. This is kind of like the average of our opinions, so I think that's a fair tier list. But let's see what you guys think down in the comments below, and thank you very much for participating because we've
Yeah.
been here for a while, maybe a little bit longer than we anticipated.
We had
S-
fun.
Oh yeah, for sure. That was a banger of an episode, if you ask me. So first, thank you, LBNinja, for agreeing to be our first guest ever.
Yeah.
Check the links below. We'll have all the links available there. So if you want to find out more about him, follow him, watch the stream. It's amazing content. Personally, I'll love to have you back here for another episode.
I would be very happy to. Also, I'm sorry to interrupt this. It's very fitting that our healer tier list ended up in the shape of an F, but I don't think we plan on that. No,
Okay,
but guys, I would
definitely.
be more than happy to come back. This was a blast, and y'all are
Yeah,
pretty chill, so I appreciate y'all for having me on.
Yeah.
yeah,
Thanks for joining. Appreciate it.
Of course.
same. All right, guys. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you on the next episode. Now, bye bye and take care.